a special guest, and we are going to be discussing the Kaldheim set that has just been fully spoiled. We're starting today with lands, artifacts, multicolored, and white and blue. And then tomorrow we will be doing the rest of the colors, black, red, and green. So tune in for that tomorrow night. We've got, of course, a lot more Kaldheim content coming down the pipe. If you're watching this on Stevensville Gamers, we will have my limited guide and constructed decks to look out for coming down the pipe probably within the next few days. So look forward to that. Casey, say hi to everybody.
Hello.
I'm going to make sure that we sound good, and if we don't, redo that intro. They redid the Twitch mobile app since last time I streamed. Lovely. Oh, okay. There we go. We're in. All right. Basically, to just tell you a little bit about how we're going to be talking about each card in this review, we are going to go over it based on its pedigree for constructed as well as limited, and we're going to give it a grade out of 5 stars for each of those formats. So we are excited to bring this to you, and we are going to start with the lands, going up from common into rare. I will be reading all the cards, and then we'll be discussing them together. So first is Shimmerdrift Vale. So this is a snow land. We're already getting into one of the mechanics of Kaldheim. It enters the battlefield tapped. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of the chosen color. This seems like a thing that fixes your draft.
Yeah, I think it's nice if you're playing more than one color and you find this in your draft and you're able to, have some fixing in your mana pool.
Yeah, I think even if you're on a monocolor snow deck, if you're just desperate for that 5th or 6th snow land, you won't feel too awful picking this up, but you'd prefer a basic snow land in most cases. I think it's obvious this is 0 stars for constructed, but for limited, maybe 2.
So is the one color chosen, is that within the snow land? Is it just snow?
No, snow doesn't have to be a color that you pick for this. This just taps for a red snow mana if you picked red.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, this is snow mana because it's a snow land.
Okay.
Yeah, that mechanic is a little bit confusing sometimes, so any new players that want clarification, go ahead and say something in chat. If you need any of the new mechanics explained to you, that's totally fine. I want this to be as helpful to new players as possible. And this will, of course, be uploaded on Stevensville Gamers either later tonight or tomorrow morning for you to view to get prepared for your pre-release or upcoming events. So the next cards, I think we should probably review them as a set because they're largely the same. But these are snow duels that enter the battlefield tapped, and they have basic land subtypes. So Woodland Chasm is an example. It's a snowland swamp forest, and it enters the battlefield tapped. So you can tap it for a black or a green. And it's a snowland, but you can fetch it with fetch lands. So the cool thing about this is it allows, if a modern snow deck wants to have dual lands, they don't have to not be snow, and you still get to play fetch lands for consistency. So you can have a Bant deck, or you can have a Sultai deck that's built around snow in modern. In standard, any multicolored snow decks will probably want to play these, so, you're not having to rely on, you might still play the flip lands, you might still play the temples just because they're so valuable, probably not the temples over these, but the flip lands maybe. Just for a little bit of fixing, but these seem pretty good to me. What's your take on these, Casey?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're incentivized to play these over maybe the temples or whatever, losing 2 life. Is it more?
Well, those are shock lands. The temple's scry 1.
Yeah. So is this better than those coming in tapped, or would you rather scry 1 or lose 2 life or whatever?
Well, yeah. So the scry ones still come in tapped. Mm-hmm. The issue with these the thing about these ones is they're snowlands. So any of the cards that we'll see later in the set that care about snow mana, these do provide that. And again, it provides a black or a green, but that mana is snow mana. So if a spell gives you a benefit based on how much snow mana you spent on it, that'll still provide. Okay. I would say that these will see some constructed play, I'm confident, at least the ones that are in the colors that really care about snow, so the Sultai ones in particular, because it looks like those are the colors that care the most about snow. And then probably not much outside of that, but I do think these will be awesome and limited. If you're even in one of these colors and you're going for a snow theme, or if you just have one or two cards that give you a little bit of a snow payoff, and you need some fixing, I think they'll be good. So we are getting all 10 of them in this set as well. If we scroll up a little, you'll see all 10 of the color combinations get a snow land with a nice, like, couple sentences of flavor text on each one to sort of build the world. So I guess we could also give these a star rating for their flavor or lore or art. The aesthetic value. So I think I would say probably 2 stars for constructed, probably 3 stars for limited.
I think I agree with you. And don't we have cards like this in most sets, but like not snow lands?
Yeah, the difference is these have basic basic land subtypes. We do not often get those. It's basically just the shock lands, the lands for Battle for Zendikar, that kind of like Canopy Vista, and the cycling lands from Amonkhet. So, that does matter because they're fetchable in Modern. We got a comment from Aggressive Rhetoric, my co-host on the Gutshot podcast, and the only Magic the Gathering content creator who Fred Durst has a restraining order against. Do you all like the snow-style border? I love it. I think it looks great.
I do not like it.
Well, you like all your cards to match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. I like my Modern deck to have a couple old border cards if they've been reprinted.
It's kind of distracting to, like, I have difficulty reading if there's like a really distracting background. So, like, the rough-looking edges in the text box is kind of distracting to me.
That's totally valid. I think they could have cleaned it up a little more, especially with the colors changing so much in the text box. But yeah, I don't know. I like it. I think it looks good, and I memorize what all the cards do, so I don't need to read them.
The contrast of like the black words to like the more light background is really nice, though.
Yeah, like if the whole text box was white, maybe it would be better. Yeah, I think that's probably true. So to move on to Immersturm Skull, I'm with Casey. They're distracting. I'm also an MTG old man. No, I know. Yeah, I get it. I'm getting dogpiled here. We're gonna move on to Immersturm Skullcairn. Now, this is an example of these lands that come in tapped and tap for 1 color at uncommon, but they have an activated ability that's 2 colors. That is sort of like a spell. These are like spell lands, like we got in Battle for Zendikar. So each of these are gonna obviously get their own rating because they do something different. So this one is Immersturm Skullcairn. It enters tapped, taps for a black, and for 1, a black and double red, and tap it, and sacrifices. So you have to sacrifice these to cast their sort of spell, for lack of a better term. It deals 3 damage to target player. That player discards a card, and this is only at sorcery speed. I love this. Like, I don't think it'll see any constructed play, but if you're in these 2 colors and limited, like, these are going to circle the drain, and you're going to be really happy to pick one of these at the end of a pack. And that effect is like that effect matters, unless your opponent's in top deck mode, because the sorcery thing is to prevent you from just doing it in response to them drawing their card for turn and just denying them that. Yeah. But if you get to do that, if your opponent's not in top deck mode, you get some card advantage, hit him for 3. ISS hi to the stream. So how do we feel about Immersturm Skullcairn?
I think I agree with you. This is like a late draft pick, and you're happy to see it if you're in these colors. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always really nice if you can play something like at the beginning of the game and then have a payoff at the end. So, like, at the point where you have 4 mana that you can spend on this and get that extra ability, I think that's really nice.
Yeah. You're going to see on these, like, mana sink lands, like, it's never a good cost. You would never play a spell that did that, sure, but it's free to include this in your deck, and that's what you're looking for with these. I would certainly not pick them high in a draft, but, like, let's say you're playing pre-release and you're both of these colors, you should absolutely play every copy of this you get. Mm-hmm. But this shouldn't dictate that you go into black and red either. You should, be looking at your spells for that and your bread and butter creatures. Yeah. I would say Immersturm Skullcairn earns a star in limited, probably, or 2 stars in limited. I think I'm cool with giving it 2 stars.
Yeah, I think this card is so situational, especially in limited, because like you're not guaranteed to be in these colors, but if you happen to be in black and red, I think it's a little bit higher, or whatever colors are available with these.
Yeah.
But I do like that, like, these sort of things are on lands, because like I to go back to the previous set where there was cycling and like you could do other things with the lands, that felt really good, because it wasn't just a resource. Like, you had
Yeah.
to pay for other spells. Like, you also had something additional, which is nice.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too that the ones of these that are half green are probably going to be a little better because the set in green has a lot of ways to make other colors of mana.
Mm-hmm.
So you could include that even if you're in a mono green deck, but I'm sure we'll see those soon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also going to be just easier to include in 2-color decks. So we see our basic snowlands. I love these arts. I don't think we're going to spend too much time looking at them. I like the mountain with the shield on the ground. I like the swamp with all the stacked stones.
I like the owl in the forest.
Yeah, I like the little elks on the plains. These are pretty, and we are getting one of these. You get one of these in every pack. You either get a basic land or a tapped snow duel in every pack, which is nice just because, and you do have to draft these, by the way. In case it wasn't clear, you do not get to include as many snowlands as you want in your draft deck. You have to draft them if you want to use them in draft. But in constructed, you're going to gather as many of these as you can in your snow deck, and you're going to just play the snowlands. So we've got the next one of these spell lands. This is Skemfar Elderhall. Enters taps for a green. For 2 double black and a green and tap, sacrifice Skemfar Elderhall. To 1 target creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Create 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. Activate this ability only time you can activate sorcery. These are all sorcery speeds, so I'll stop reading that part. But this is where the elves live that sort of hunt together, and you get to crack it to give a creature -2/-2, which is not huge, and you can't do it as a combat trick, but you can do it maybe after they blocked your creature and took some damage, or you can just take out a bear that's sort of straggling from the early game, and you get 2 1/1s. It's not the worst ability we see on a land like this. And like I mentioned, the ones that are half green are going to be a little bit easier to activate just because there's ways to get any color in green. I'm inclined to say this effect is probably about as good as the black-red one we've already seen. Casey, what are your thoughts?
I think I would agree with you. I do have a really strange question, though.
Sure.
So, say there, those lands that you can, turn them into a creature?
Yes.
So, is that instant speed? Like, you can do that instant speed?
They all say activate this ability only time you could activate a sorcery.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Most of the man lands can be made into creatures at instant speed, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So how do you feel about Skemfar Elderhall?
I think I would agree with you.
Okay. Probably about as good as the black-red one.
Yeah.
All right, so we move on to the blue-red one, Surtland Frostpire. Enters taps for a red. For 2 double blue and a red, you can scry 2. Surtland Frostpire deals 2 damage to each creature. Activate this ability only time you can activate sorcery. So you get to crack this for a Pyroclasm and Scry 2. 5 mana is a hefty cost, but for a little board wipe against an aggressive deck, I'm not hating on this. It hits your creatures too, obviously, which is a little bit rough. I like the art on this quite a bit. I think it's pretty. But yeah, I don't know if this is as good as the other two. Like, Scrying 2 is fine. You see that on something like Castle Vantress, but you don't have to sacrifice it to do that, and it costs less mana. And you get to do 2 to each creature, which is usually probably going to be okay with you. Like in Limited, though, that's just as likely to punish you as it is your opponent. In Constructed, you could build around this, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if a couple of sort of blue-red control decks played a couple copies of this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a star for Constructed and probably 1 star for Limited.
Yeah. I instantly thought, I play a lot of aggro, and so getting hit by 2 damage to all my creatures, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. I just think it costs too much for it to be relevant at that stage.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The power of Pyroclasm is that you can play it while they're at the stage of the game that they're actually playing the little creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas this does not afford you that as much. So next we've got Great Hall of Starnheim. Now, Starnheim is the place on Kaldheim where the angels live, and it seems like it's like a Valhalla sort of thing. Like, you go there if you die, if you're not a chud. So Great Hall of Starnheim enters taps for a black. Double white and black and taps. This is the cheapest one we've seen so far. Sack it, and a creature you control. Create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Activate only as a sorcery. This is pretty alright.
Yeah,
you pay 3 and tap to turn one of your creatures into a Sarah Angel. You get any death triggers, I guess. Yeah, this is probably one of the better ones. I still don't think it'd be constructed playable just because of entering tapped and only tapping for 1 color. I don't think any of these are constructed playable except maybe the blue-red one, but this one is pretty good. This is probably the best one we've seen so far in Limited. I don't know if I'd bump it above 2 stars, but definitely be very happy to get this. Again, it gives you it's a land that gives you a flyer in the late game if you're in white and black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a 4/4 for effectively 4 is not terrible. And also, like, I mean, I got a preview on the other cards of this, but you do get a trigger if you're playing the Angel Warrior tribal deck.
Angel Cleric?
Or, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's nice, too. Like, you wouldn't be getting that. Like, it's sort of an extra, so that's nice.
Yeah, the Angel Tribal matters a little bit in the set, especially in Constructed, if that deck takes off. Because they finally released some relatively cheap Angels mana-wise. Yeah, so this card seems alright.
Well, I don't like that they're setting fire to a greenhouse. That's what it looks like.
I don't think that's what's being depicted.
I know. I'm just joking.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that's not what's happening.
I know.
So next we've got Lityara Mirror Lake. Enters taps for blue. For 2 double green and a blue, tap and sacrifice it. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Activate this ability only to any time you activate a sorcery. Now this, if you're in both colors, is pog as hell. Maybe the best. These kind of feel like they just keep getting better as we scroll up. Just making your biggest creature again. I mean, 5 mana is quite a bit, but if you're playing a deck that's playing 5 or 6 drops, this land is a land, and then later it's just another one of your best ones. So, especially in Limited, I think this card's awesome.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's sort of situational, though, because, what if your largest creature is, a 1/1, so you're only getting a 2/2 for, 6 mana or 5 mana?
Alright, then you just don't crack it. You just wait till you get a bigger thing.
Yeah, but you might not have anything else.
Right, but I think that's a criticism you would lobby at creatures that are or spells that just make a copy and that's all they do. This is a land, and it entered tap. So if it's not relevant, you just played a tapped island. But if it is relevant, you just got a spell out of your island that you played earlier.
Sure, but I don't know. I think this is really good if you're winning, but doesn't really matter if you're losing.
Yeah, that's true. I think I would say the same about the black-white one, though, because you have to sacrifice a creature to get the angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there are some of these help you come back from bad situations more than other ones, like the blue-red one definitely does, and the red-black one maybe, but yeah, I think that's a fair criticism to make. I don't think this will see any constructed play, but I think in Limited it's 2 stars.
Okay, yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah. Axguard Armory. Enters taps for white. For 1 double red and a white, tap. Sacrifice Axguard Armory. Search your library for an aura card and or an equipment card. Reveal them, put them in your hand, and then shuffle your library. So this can fetch an equipment and a rune for that equipment, or this can fetch... I mean, there's not a lot of... I don't think there's any auras other than the runes in this set, or there's only a couple... there's only, I remember, 1 white one for sure. There's only a couple. But even if this just grabs an equipment, which I don't think it'll often do, I think if you're drafting this, you want to make sure you have 2 equipment and 2 auras, so you'll always be grabbing both things off of this to get your full value, but I think this is definitely strong.
Are the sagas auras?
No, auras are just enchantments that enchant things.
What about... So, I thought we were talking about that the gods had equipment on the back?
Yeah, I don't think this can grab those just because they are only, when they're anywhere but on the stack or in play, they're only the front side.
Oh, I see.
I think. So I'm pretty sure that Axguard Armory cannot fetch the gods. But if you draft this with a god, and it does work that way, that'd be pretty great, yeah. But no, I don't think it does. But we saw there's a cycle of equipments that can make a creature token when they come in, and those are very draftable. I like all of those in draft, and this can grab any of them, so... and especially the red and the white one were seemed like some of the best ones.
Armory is Embercleave.
Armory is Embercleave 4 through 8. I don't think that's exactly... That's a hot take. I don't think you want to play this just to grab Embercleave in Standard, given that it comes in tapped. But I will be excited to see it once, and then no longer excited to see it, if it's good, for grabbing Embercleave. What aura do you grab off of it? That draws you an extra card. It's true. You do get an aura off of it. I can't think of what aura you would play. I guess the +2/+2, but you can't block one. Yeah, feel free to brew with that in limited.
Would this be good in like an equipment modern deck?
I think it is too slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your land's coming in tapped in modern, it's got to do something real special.
I didn't know if this was real special.
No, I mean, if it put him into play, then yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But it just puts him in your hand.
Okay.
So I would say probably not. But you're welcome to try it. Brewing with new cards is the most fun part of a new set. So yeah, I think I would give this 1 star constructed, 2 unlimited, if you can draft around it. And like the equipments and auras are in this set are good enough that you're not going to take them just because this grabs them. You're going to take them anyway, so you'll probably wind up with stuff that like you're not building around this, and you can include it and still get the value. So next is Bretagard's Stronghold. Enters tapped, taps for green. Pay a green and double white, sacrifice it. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. They gain vigilance and lifelink until end of turn. So this is, I mean, I would liken this to Gavany Township. You're only putting counters on 2 things, but it is cheaper. But you do have to sacrifice it. But they do gain vigilance and lifelink until end of turn. I think this will see some standard play if there's like sort of aggressive green-white decks. The only problem is it coming in tapped. But if we're entering into an era where a lot of people's lands are coming in tapped, or decks can afford to be a little bit slower, then I could see this seeing a little standard play. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not going to be the first one to throw down with it. You'll see my list of decks I want to brew day 1 in a couple days, but this is not something I would want to throw down on day 1, but I could see it seeing a little standard play. I'm just not going to be the one to make that leap. What are your thoughts on it, Casey?
I like this. I mean, I play a lot of white-green, and like I said earlier, like having something in the late game that can do something extra than just being a resource to pay for spells is really nice. So,
yeah,
having a little trick up your sleeve. I mean, it would be nice if this was instant speed, but I mean, sorcery speed, you can sort of...
I think all of these would be nice if they were instant speed.
Yeah, but I mean, that might push the advantage, to you in a game. You never know. So it's just nice that that's something extra on a land.
Yeah, it's just nice. Yeah, like you can kind of end games or come back that way.
Yeah.
I definitely like it. I think it's that you've talked me out of Lityara Miralik a little bit, so I think this one might be my favorite so far. But I do love the next one too. So Notvold Slumber Mound. Now this is enters tapped, taps for a red. For 3 red, green, green, tap, sacrifice it, destroy target land, create a 4/4 green troll warrior creature, talk about trample. So there's a little bit of Ponza in red, green in this set, and if you know me, you know I love Ponza in Modern. Not the crappy, like, we're playing like 6 copies of land destruction lists that are going around in Modern right now, but the hard Ponza, where like most of your deck is land destruction spells and mana dorks to cast them. And this is obviously not that, but think about it this way. You draft this in limited, you get to blow up your opponent, either one of their snow lands that they're relying on, or a dual land that they're maybe relying on if their mana base is greedy, because you're going to see some greedy mana bases in limited. There's there's a lot of multicolored uncommons in the set, but blow up that, or if your opponent's got one of these 10 ability lands, like, Lityara Miralik, Great Hall of Starnhelm, if they've got any of that stuff, you get to blow theirs up and get a 4/4 with trample. So I think this is definitely one of the better ones if you're in both of these colors. Yeah, I'm a fan of Notvold Slumber Mound. I want to give it a star in Constructed, honestly, and probably 2 in Limited as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and it's nice to see stuff like this. We're kind of dialing back multicolor decks because they tend to be pretty good because they have resources from multiple colors.
In Standard?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they see Standard play, that would definitely be true.
Yeah, so it's nice that you can destroy, like, I don't know, I think especially in Limited, because, like, you can expect your opponent, if they're playing a multicolor deck, to have, maybe 1 or 2 dual lands, and it's really nice to get rid of those if they're relying on them. So
yeah, in Standard, there's also the Manland from Zendikar they can keep making it bigger by 2 every turn, and this is nice to get rid of that because that's definitely a house, or like the castles from Eldraine. Just a lot of targets for this in Standard, if you're like at that level of mana. But this foretells, I think, some better, specifically one I'm thinking of, better land destruction spell later in the set that we'll look at. But safe to say this is pretty good. Immersturm, Skullcairn we already looked at. Sometimes they just copy them. So Port of Carfell. Enters the battlefield tapped for a blue. Pay 3 blue and double black. Sacrifice Port of Carfell. Mill 4 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So weird for blue-black to have Reanimator as its land. But, like, the milling 4, I guess, makes it blue. I don't know. But this is obviously, Reanimator effects are really good to have in Limited. You just bring back your best creature that died that game, basically. You're not going to be doing any shenanigans like you might in Constructed, where you're like trying to discard a creature that's bigger than you can cast and then bring it back. In Limited, you're just going to be bringing back the best creature you played this game. But it kind of, I guess, fixes the problem of Lityara Mirror Lake, where if the big creature's dead, you get to bring it back, instead of, like, you just get to copy whatever crappy thing you have out right now. So I think this card's pretty good. The mana cost is obviously really steep. It's basically 7 because you have to tap and sacrifice this. I'm a pretty big fan of this. I think I don't know if it has any constructed potential. I'd be inclined to say no, but I think it has 2 stars in Limited, probably like the rest of these.
Yeah, I think it's way too slow for constructed. Limited, I don't really know. I don't want to waste my, what is that, turn 6 or 7 on this card
at the earliest. Yeah, it's if you haven't missed any land drops.
Yeah. I don't want this to be that turn, but I mean, if your game lasts longer than 7 turns, then this might be okay. But
yeah,
I don't know.
And that's assuming you didn't miss a land drop. But yeah, I'm not high on this one. But the next one I am a little high on, and that's just because of some experience that we sort of have. So Gates of Istfell. Enters tapped for white. This is the shortest one so far, and you can actually activate this one at instant speed. I guess you could activate the last one at instant speed, too. Yeah, those are the only 2, right? No, okay.
So
sorry, the white, is it, okay, there doesn't seem to be any pattern to it, but the white-red one is instant speed, the red-green one is instant speed, as well as the blue-black one, and this one. So, Gates of Istfell is 2 a white, double blue, and tap, sacrifice it. You gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. So, there was the Blighted cycle from Battle for Zendikar. The blue one saw some standard play, and it was 5 and tap and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. And it didn't come in tap, but it tapped for a colorless. And that card saw a little bit of standard play in control decks. It was just like, late in the game, I'm running out of resources. I'm going to crack one of my lands to draw 2 cards. And this literally does that. It demands that you play blue and white. But it's, late in the game, you crack it, gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. And drawing cards is always good. I think this one probably has the most constructed potential out of any of them. I would say it's 2 stars in constructed, 2 stars in limited. This effect is just pretty powerful to have on a land. I think this is pretty clearly the best. I'm pretty comfortable saying this is the best of the 10. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's nice to see card draw on a land, and especially late in the game when you might be digging for something or you need 2 life. This is really nice, and you can do that at instant speed. So, yeah, I would agree. I would be happy to see this in limited, and I think in like standard play too, this wouldn't feel too bad, but.
Yeah. I think this is very good. If it were a sorcery, it'd be terrible, I think. But the fact that you can do this on your opponent's end step if they didn't play anything worth countering and just solidify your advantage by having way more cards than them in a control deck. So next we've got the other 4 pathways. We got 6 of these in Zendikar Rising, and we're not going to spend much time on these. This is just the other color pairs. They're, the decks that want both of those colors in standard are going to play 4 copies. You don't value this highly in limited because kind of why would you, play it if it's one of your colors and sealed, but otherwise it's whatever. These have like these cards basically already exist, just in other color combinations. So there's not much to evaluate here. So we'll just kind of skip over them.
Well, I like the art on the Bark channel
Oh, excuse me.
pathway. It reminds me of field work when I'm. Yeah.
Tide channel pathway on the other side, and we can look at there's showcase versions of these that have completely different art as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I like the art channel pathway showcase. Hopefully we'll get some of these in our pre-release kits.
Yeah.
And if not, maybe they'll be as cheap as the ones in Zendikar Rising end up being. So next we've got some real interesting lands, 3 rare lands that are kind of doozies. So this one's the World Tree. Enters taps for a green. As long as you control 6 or more lands you control can tap for 1 mana of any color. And for 2 mana of each color, tap, sacrifice the World Tree. Search your library for any number of gods, put them onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. So there's like 15, there's a little bit over 10 gods in this set. And then we have the 6, 7 with the buy box promo gods from Theros, also in standard. So, crack this, grab Clothis, Heliod, whatever else. Like, you kind of have to be playing a 5-color deck or just a mono green deck with like 1 copy of each of the gods you might want to fetch. But it is, of course, the case that cracking the World Tree kind of just wins you the game. And like, even if you are just mono green, there's 3 different green gods in this set. So that gives you Devotion to give to Nylea if you put Nylea out, so her and Clothis will like immediately be creatures. So even if you're just playing this in a mono green deck and relying on its second ability to provide the colored mana, I think there'll be some spicy brews around this, but you'd be hard pressed to convince me that this will be like a top tier deck.
Golos.
This does kind of have a Golos vibe, I guess. Let's see if it's in the thesaurus for Golos. No.
Oh.
The thesaurus seems pretty inaccurate on this one, though, honestly.
Honestly, if I see this in limited and I'm like drafting, that's just way too many words. I would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, you would also have to draft a god for this to do anything.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's just enters tap and taps for green, and lets you tap for any color on all your lands if you have 6 or more. So, but no, I don't think this is something you should seriously consider in draft. But it is there. This card certainly exists. I'm going to give it 2 stars in Constructed for some potential fun decks that it makes, but do not play it in Limited. Stevensville Gamers 2 is rating us with a party of 2. Thank you. Where do you scroll back down?
You get a bunch of these. Okay.
Well, yeah, but its ability lets you tap for anything.
I know.
So Faceless Haven is the next one. This one seems pretty strong. It taps for a colorless, but it's a snow land, so that's a snow colorless. And for 3 snow mana, it becomes a 4/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types until end of turn. It's still a land. So 4/3 vigilance for 3 snow mana is pretty strong. Hey, what's up, Stevensville Gamers? What's up, Mike? We are reviewing the Kaldheim cards. This will be going up on your channel soon. Faceless Haven's a little tough to evaluate for me. It's kind of like the manland from Zendikar Rising, but it seems a little... I don't know, like it's immediately better, but it can't grow like the one from Zendikar Rising. And it does obviously require a snow deck, but I'm thinking of snow decks in Standard that might want to play this. I don't think you're going to be able to pull this off in Limited because you need 3 other snow lands to do it out, not just in your deck. So I'm going to say no to this in Limited, but...
This is definitely a 6 out of 5 for me because it is a bear, technically.
Yes, yeah, it has all creature types, so it is a bear. Just rated you with some boys. Thank you. I appreciate it. What?
This? It's a land and a bear.
Yeah, it is a bear. So there are a few changelings in the set that have every creature type. And this one is, yeah, it's a 4/3 bear. In addition to, it's also a brushwag, it's an advisor, it's a lurgoyf, it's a knight, it's a wizard, it's a god. So yeah, I think it's all right. I think it'll see a little standard play in the snow decks. But I mean, it's worth considering. Like maybe the snow decks would rather still just play the manland if they want a manland. Like they might just play the one from Zendikar. Although this one is a snowland, I think. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if this will be good enough to play in the snow decks, but we see. This next one's really interesting. Tyrite Sanctum. Taps for colorless, 2 and tap. Target legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. So worth noting, even if you've already done this, you can do it again. You can just keep putting +1/+1 counters on a legendary creature with this, because it doesn't say if target legendary creature that's not a god becomes a god, so you can keep activating this. It just stays a god. Then for 4 and tap, sacrifice Tyrite Sanctum, put an indestructible counter on target god. So you can make your gods indestructible just like the gods from Theros or Amonkhet if they don't already have indestructible, or you can make your legendary creature a god and then make it indestructible. You just have to crack Tyrite Sanctum. I think this will be a commander staple in like casual commander decks, because in competitive commander decks, if you've played your commander and you've gone 2 rounds, you've probably already won. But in casual commander, slowly making your commander indestructible and giving it a +1/+1 counter and making it a god, I guess, if that matters to you, is pretty powerful. I think this will see some standard play in any deck that, if there's any decks that are built around a god, they'll probably play 1 or 2 Tyrite Sanctums. It wouldn't surprise me. And any decks that play legendary creatures that can spare the colorless mana, like if there's a monocolor deck that plays a few copies of a couple different legendary creatures, just putting the counters on them is probably good enough to play 1 or 2 copies of Tyrite Sanctum, which is not legendary. You can play multiple Tyrite Sanctums. What are your thoughts?
So does the creature type remain during the whole game, or is it just a 1-turn thing?
Yeah, unless it gets blinked or dies or bounces to your hand or something, yeah, it's a god for as long as it's out.
I don't know. I don't really have a gut feeling about this one.
I do. I'm going to go ahead and give this 2 stars for Constructed. I think it'll definitely see a little bit of play. Any monocolor deck that plays some legendaries will probably want to play 1 or 2 copies of this.
Okay.
In Limited, I don't know if it's worth it. There are a couple uncommon legendaries. Yeah, in Limited, you probably do take this pretty highly. I think I would give this 2 stars in Limited, because there's an uncommon legendary in every type, or in every color, and there's an uncommon legendary in every single color pairing as well in Gold. So, if you just get 1 of those, this is just a land. It's not that hard to include in your deck, and you can just keep putting counters on it, and then make it indestructible at instant speed, too. So, I'm sold on this. I think this is 2 or 3 stars in Limited, 2 or 3 stars in Constructed. I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
We'll see, though. So, next we are moving on to Artifacts. We've got a few of those. We will ignore the ones that are colors, because those we will cover in their actual color. So we're just doing the colorless artifacts right now. And then we'll do the multicolored. Weathered Runestone, 2 mana. Non-land permanents in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. I may have misread that card. Yeah. Okay, I thought that affected Foretell. It does not. So this is kind of like a Graph Digger's Cage sort of deal. I don't think you'd play this in Limited at all. I think this is 0 stars in Limited, probably, because it's just not going to necessarily be relevant. But this might see some Constructed play if there's a particularly nasty Reanimator deck or something. So, yeah, we'll say this is a star in Constructed, I think. What are your thoughts on it?
When we were talking about this the other day, it was really confusing to me, because I was like, well, what are you going to do if you can't play anything?
It doesn't affect your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized that later.
Yeah, it's a hard card to grasp. The thing is, there's going to be a few copies of this effect in Standard, and, in Modern, you have to worry about what the most efficient thing is, but if you need this effect in Standard, you're just going to pick a card that does this, which might be this, might not. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So it's just cool that we have this. It's like a Pithing Needle type thing. You play whatever card says the text of Pithing Needle on it that's currently in Standard.
So how does this affect, escape cards?
They can't use them at all.
Okay. Yeah. That might be pretty good against escape cards.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah, it stops escape completely.
Yeah.
They can't play it. So, Uro, as long as you got this out, Uro can't be used. 1 second. Sorry about that. So, Weathered Runestone is just kind of a Graph Digger's Cage sort of effect. Not useful in Limited, but good to have for Constructed. Next we've got Raider's Carve. 3 mana equipment. It's a 4/4 that crews for 3, and when it attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you can put it on the battlefield tapped. So, relatively relevant ability there. Cruise for 3. So, what are your thoughts?
I think you skipped one.
Yeah, because that's a red card. So we're going to talk about that more.
I really like the art on this card. I think the obvious colors are nice with the orange and the blue.
Mm-hmm.
I recently discovered what crew meant. I thought it was much different than that. So early in my Magic career, I was like, no, I wouldn't ever want to play like 3 creatures. I sort of thought that, what is that ability whenever you're... Convoke. Yeah, I thought it was like Convoke. And I was like, no, why would anybody want to do that? But never mind.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think this is good for a common. You know, you play it on turn 3. Next turn, you play your new creature and you crew this with it, because that creature can't attack that turn if you're aggressive. This is good for aggressive decks. I'm going to give it 2 stars unlimited. It's fine for a common. So next we've got Goldvein Pick. Now this is an equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever it hits a player, you get a treasure. And this equips for just 1. I think a lot of decks are going to want a copy of this. You know, it makes your creature a little bigger. It gives you some mana fixing. I think there's nothing wrong with this. There's some cards that let you do cool stuff with treasure. Only a couple in this set. Treasure's not as big of a theme here as it was in Ixalan, but I think a lot of decks will want a copy of this card in limited. So I'm inclined to give it 2 stars. I don't think it'll see any constructed play. It's much too linear, much too I guess I don't think it does enough for the mana cost for constructed, but yeah, I mean, every limited deck would love Shadow Spear, and this is to compare it to Shadow Spear is a little weird, I guess, but I mean it's a buff of 1/1. A lot of limited decks play Short Sword. I think a lot of those limited decks would be glad paying 1 more mana for that Short Sword to make treasure every time you hit your opponent. You know, you kind of get that difference in mana back the first time you hit your opponent. So I think Goldvein Pick is 2 stars unlimited.
yeah, I think it is nice that you have a bit of fixing with an equipment. Maybe later on in the game you need a mana and you have a treasure laying around. I think that's pretty nice. And you get another, you can buff a creature with it too. So I think it's decent, but I think I'm with you that I think it's okay for limited if you're focused on something like this, but in constructed, I don't think it's super good for 3.
Yeah, for sure. So next we've got Funeral Longboat. This is another equipment, another vehicle, another boat. So this costs 2, and it's a 3/3, and it crews for just 1, and it's got Vigilance. So Vigilance is not as relevant as it would be on just a creature, because you of course have to crew it again on your opponent's turn if you want to block with it, because crew only lasts till the end of turn. But it does crew for just 1. So you play this on 2, on turn 3 you play your 3-drop creature, and then you just crew this with it and swing for 3. That's fine. This is alright in an aggressive deck like any vehicle is, so I'm cool with just giving this 2 stars unlimited. You're not going to want it in every deck, but if you're pretty aggressive and you're short on 2 drops, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Funeral Boat seems really good. It's the return of the Copter. Okay, so comparing this to Smuggler's Copter, I think is interesting. Smuggler's Copter was a card as a 2-mana 3/3 flying vehicle that crewed for 1, and when you attacked with it or blocked with it, you could discard a card to draw a card, or draw a card and discard a card, I don't remember. It actually got banned from Standard. This is not flying, and it does not have the card advantage that Smuggler's Copter did. We're going to talk about this card on the podcast. Okay. Yeah, so I think Will has made one of his picks for cards to discuss on the podcast. If this gets banned from Standard in the same way that Smuggler's Copter did, I will be very surprised. Vigilance is not flying, especially not on a vehicle where you have to crew it on both turns, but I am willing to be wrong. And we will see if Funeral Longboat makes its mark on Standard. Will has a high opinion of this card, and he's right about some stuff right here occasionally. So we will see if he's right about this. So Scorn Effigy is next. It's 3 mana, but it's not really a 3-drop. It's got Foretell 0. So this is our first Foretell card, and kind of a weird card to explain the ability on. But Foretell lets you put it down to the side, put it face down for 2, and then cast it for its Foretell cost on a later turn. So you can put this down for 2, and then play it later for 0 as a 2/3. So it's basically a 2-drop that just doesn't come in until the next turn, and it's a 2/3. And it goes in any deck in limited because it's an artifact. So yeah, it's fine. Probably 2 stars. It's pretty okay common. Like plenty of decks are gonna be okay with taking this as the 2-drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you get one of those lands that you can search for an artifact, you can actually get a creature.
Oh, that searches for an equipment or an aura.
Oh, I thought it was an artifact. Never mind.
No, it's an okay card. I'm not gonna hate on it. It's a mediocre draft common. You need those. Raven Wings is 2. It equips for 2. It gives a creature +1/0, flying, and is a bird in addition to its other types. That is so marginally irrelevant.
It is.
Yeah, usually these just gives flying equipments are not worth the mana. The exception, like last set, we got the Kite Sail that equipped for free when it came in, and that was pretty good. But yeah, this is I don't think gonna see much. You maybe play 1 copy if you think your draft deck would have trouble with gummed up board states. So give it a star unlimited.
Yeah, I don't think this is very good.
Okay, cool. I think we're on the same page. So Runed Crown is 3 for equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library, hand, and or graveyard for a rune and put it onto the battlefield attached to Runed Crown. If you search your library in this way, shuffle it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. So the runes, which we'll see later, are a cycle of enchantments that can enchant either a creature or an equipment, and give that creature or equipment a keyword, and when they come in, you draw a card. So when this comes in, you're going to draw a card, because you're going to put the rune into play, and that's going to draw a card. So this will basically read, equipped creature gets +1/+1, but also, if you pick the white one, you get lifelink. You pick the blue one, you get flying. You pick the green one, you get trample, and another +1/+1. So in any deck, if you have 1 or 2 runes, you get to slap them on Rune Crown for free. And so this equipment is automatically going to be drawing a card and is going to be even better than just giving +1/+1. And this equips for 2, of course. So I like this a lot. I like Rune Crown a great deal. I think this is going to be really good. The runes are commons as well, if I remember correctly. So we're going to talk about each of them as we go through the colors, but I think Rune Crown is definitely pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think in Constructed, especially if you're playing some like rune-based deck, it'll be really good. But maybe Unlimited, it's not as good because like you might only have like 1, and I don't think I would want to spend 5 mana for maybe 1 rune.
Yeah, you do draw a card though. Well, I think if you play that, you draw a card when it comes in because you're getting the rune immediately. Yeah. I think you play this if you have like 2 runes in draft. I think if the mono white runes list in standard is any good, it'll play these because there's the dude that fetches a rune when he comes in and makes your runes cost 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that could be all right. So yeah, I'm comfortable playing this in limited if you have a couple runes. So next we've got Replicating Ring. Now this is 3, and it's a snow artifact. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, which remember will be a snow mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a night counter on Replicating Ring. Then if it has 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them and create 8 colorless snow artifact tokens named Replicated Ring with tap, add 1 mana of any color. This is a reference to something in Norse mythology that is going over my head, but this seems pretty good. It's a 3-mana rock with a weird added ability. They've added marginally relevant abilities to mana rocks all the time. After 8 upkeeps, you get 8 more copies of it, basically. 8 more mana rocks, which are they snow? Yeah, they are snow as well. So that's a lot of snow mana you can spend on your snowy spells if you want to. I don't know if this will see constructed play. I could see somebody trying to make this work in limited, just to like have infinite mana basically after you get to those 8 counters and just playing sort of a controlling deck to try to get to that stage in the game. I think that'd be fun. I'm not gonna hate on this in limited. I think it'd be fun to see it work. This looks like a white card. I don't like the way this border looks on artifacts. It's confusing. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Replicating Ring?
I don't think the Greenland Vikings deserve this because they completely obliterated the land.
What do you mean?
I'm just making a reference to
The next card?
no. I don't know. I think it's strange, but whatever.
Do you think it's going to be okay in any format?
No.
Not good and limited either?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So next we've got Colossal Plow, which, I mean, this is kind of a white card. It's not white. I don't know if it'll show up in the white card, so we should probably talk about it now. And you could play it in a non-white deck easily and just, basically if you're colorless mana. So this is 2. It's a 6/3 vehicle with crew 6. And whenever it attacks, you get 3 white mana and gain 3 life, and you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, so you can spend it through the rest of your turn. This seems really good to me, honestly. It's a little bit of ramping and like a tiny bit of life gain, and it swings. You're not really going to generally feel unsafe swinging it because not a lot of stuff eats a 6/3. And it only, you can play it down as your 2-drop and then maybe even crew it the next turn, depending on how big the stuff you're able to play is. Probably not the next turn, but probably the turn after you can crew it and then get to play more cards with that mana that it gives you. So I think Colossal Plow is going to be really solid.
I didn't have that opinion, but I don't know. The crew mechanic is so strange to think about.
It's hard to evaluate.
Because
it keeps coming back.
Yeah, because like you might not have 6 power out at once. Can crew work for itself?
No, you can't crew itself. You can crew another copy of Colossal Plow, but there's no reason to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think crew's pretty situational.
Maybe. It's good in aggressive decks because your creatures that don't have haste can still crew. So they can crew a creature that came in last turn. And obviously, like a 6/2 is great. But, tapping 6 power to get it to turn into a creature is the hard part.
Yeah.
So, to do your best to ignore these colored cards, we've got a few more colorless cards to talk about. Bloodline Pretender is a 3-mana 2/2 shapeshifter. It's got changeling, so it's every creature type. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Bloodline Pretender. This is probably pretty bad. It just, it's to even be on course to be like, the correct mana cost, you basically have to immediately then play another creature of the same type, and then you get bigger and better. This might be a little okay and limited, like if you've got a lot of like elves or angels or something, but otherwise it's going to be pretty crappy. It's going to stay a 2/2 more often than you'd think. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's nice because it can sort of target anything where it can be any creature type. So if you have a creature in your deck at all, but I'm with you, it's kind of like a wasted spot whenever you could just be playing something in your colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I don't think this would see any standard play at all.
Mm-hmm.
It does trigger off of tokens. I guess that's worth noting, but I don't think that makes it that much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 star in limited. Pyre of Heroes. This is one a lot of people are talking about. This is sort of a spiritual successor to Birthing Pod, maybe a fixed version of Birthing Pod. So this is 2 mana, artifact, pay 2, tap, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with it and has a converted mana cost of 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle your library, activate only as a sorcery. So in English, that's sacrifice a creature, grab a creature of the same creature type that costs 1 more, and put it into play for free from your deck. Yeah, I mean, this limit, the thing that was busted about Birthing Pod was you would go, any 2-drop into Eternal Witness to grab back the 2-drop into Siege Rhino or into just, or Restoration Angel, blink something. You just had so much value at your fingertips. But with this being a little bit cheaper, but being restricted to the same creature type, you can grab an elf. There's plenty of decent 2-drop humans and shamans to grab Eternal Witness off of in Modern. This might see a little Modern play. It honestly wouldn't surprise me. Modern deck builders are pretty creative when there's not Eldrazi Winter going on or something. So I think this could see a tiny bit of Modern play. It wouldn't surprise me. Most tribal decks are a little too fast to want this, but if your value creatures happen to share a creature type, then Pyre of Heroes gets really strong. What are your thoughts on this card?
I think that I feel like you and I are similar, but I think tribal decks are so tight that this might not find a spot in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I what I'm saying, I guess, is I don't think these will go in a tribal deck. I think this will just go in a deck that happens to play a couple of creatures of the same type.
I think that
it's not
only
good enough.
viable in a tribal deck.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking like Bone Crusher Giant into one of the couple decent 4-drop giants into like I don't know if there's a good 5-drop giant, but yeah, I think I probably agree with you. Will says sorcery speed in tribal really kills it, especially with Vanifar as a different option. Yeah, I think this is probably has too much to compete with in modern in terms of speed. Yeah. I'm less high on this than I was going into it. So next is Maskwood Nexus. Now it's a 4-drop artifact. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. 3 and tap, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with changeling. So this breaks some stuff in half. Any cards you have that ask a specific creature type, now just ask for a creature. Any card you have that fetch a specific creature type, now just grab a creature. If the World Tree sees play in Standard, it's going to be with Maskwood Nexus, because then instead of just grabbing any number of gods you want out of your deck, you just grab any number of creatures you want out of your deck and put them into play. Because they're all gods now with Maskwood Nexus.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing here, like attempting to make like a Maskwood Nexus World Tree deck. I think will be quite spicy. I don't know if it'll be any good, especially because you have to pay 10 mana and tap the World Tree to even activate it, but I wouldn't be surprised. And it'd be really fun to do. Just get all the creatures out of your deck and just immediately put them into play. Yeah. I like Maskwood Nexus, and in limited, like paying 3 and tapping it to make a 2/2 every turn, like you just get a 2/2 every turn. Like that's pretty fine. Like I wouldn't feel awful about it. It's probably not a first pick, but it's fine later. And then it of course pays you off for any tribal synergies. So I think this is probably 2 stars in constructed, 2 stars in limited.
This might be good. I didn't play a lot of the last set, but. Like if you're missing something in your party, this might be helpful.
Like in Standard? Yeah, party decks never really took off in Standard. It could be possible that this is like the piece that they need. Just so you can play like so instead of worrying about making sure you're playing an even amount of all the party creatures, you can just play the best party creatures you can find, and then they're all party types. Yeah, I think a white deck that does that might be good with a 1-drop cleric. That's really good and good aggressively if you have a full party. Yeah, I could see that. You still need to control 4 different creatures, is the issue. 4 distinct creatures, but I think yeah, Maskwood Nexus could help like a slower party deck if any such thing could come into existence.
Yeah.
Or you could just like in the Maskwood Nexus World Tree deck, you could play the party card that fetches something and puts it into play if your party is full for 1 black, or casts it. Yeah, I think that could be good. So next we've got Cosmos Elixir. Now this one's interesting. I think it's pretty bad, but some people have different opinions than me. I'm learning to cope with that. So this is a 4-mana artifact. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. What are your thoughts on this?
I really like this.
I think if your life total is greater than your starting life total, you're probably already winning the game, and you don't want to pay 4 mana to just draw a card every turn. And if it's not, then just gaining 2 life every turn is not going to be enough to fix a bad game state.
Sure, but I play a lot of life games, so, like, I'm comparing it to things that, like, I guess for this card for me is, like, my life total is often higher than what I started with, unless I'm losing, of course, and then, like, it says otherwise you gain 2 life, and that could like be helping fix that problem, like kind of evening it out.
Sure. I think there's just infinitely better cards that pay you off for that. Like, are you going to play a 4-mana artifact that lets you draw a card every turn, or are you going to play a 1-mana 6/6 flying lifelink? Or even just in Standard, are you just going to play a 1-mana 1/1 that taps to make Sarah Angels? Like, with Vigilance. Like, I think it's a no-brainer. I think this card, like it doesn't do anything to fix your bad board state. Like in the life gain decks that would want this, Elixir is the best card draw white will ever get. True. True. Ouch. But yeah. I just think, if you're losing, it's because you have a bad board state, not because you don't have enough life. So gaining 2 life isn't going to fix it. And if you're not losing, if you're winning, you don't need to draw. You don't need to play a 4-drop that just draws you a card every turn. You need to do something that's actually going to solidify your win state. So I'm not high on this. I think it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think this is especially difficult to make work in formats where your life total is higher than 20.
Yeah.
Like Two-Headed Giant and I don't know. What you say?
Well, this just asks you it to be greater than your starting life total.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't have to be just greater than 20.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Like, I don't know, I 20 is like reasonable, but if you're playing with 30 life, it's really hard to climb that ladder sometimes.
That's fair.
So.
Yeah. But it is true that this is the best card draw white will ever get.
Stop. You're crushing my dreams.
I think Dubious Challenge. Your opponent playing Dubious Challenge is the best card draw white will ever get. Yeah, so the rest of these are colors, so we will be covering them later. We're going to jump into multicolored here. And it's kind of awkward because some of these modal dual face spells have a different colored thing on the back, but I like this card. It's just slow, consistent card advantage. That's good. It's not consistent, though. If your opponent's hitting you, you don't get any cards. Like, if you play that down and your opponent's hitting you for 4 every turn, you've just made them be hitting you for 2 every turn instead for 4 mana.
Yeah, but if you're playing life game, that 2 matters.
But if you're playing life gain, there's infinitely better 4-drops you could be playing that gain you life consistently and aren't just an artifact that sits there and gains you 2 life every turn. But like, yeah. if you're playing this onto an empty board, you're going to lose the game. And if you're not playing this onto an empty board, it's not going to help you win.
I don't know.
If this card ends up in any standard deck that gets top 8 in any event, like that's like a GP or like an online qualifier or something, I will buy you dinner wherever you want.
Okay, deal.
Okay, cool. Card's good, man. You're wrong about that, I think.
No, Will,
and I'm banning you both.
No, you're canceled.
Okay, I think the card's terrible.
I think you're terrible.
I think the card's terrible, and you guys have both misevaluated it.
No, 2 against 1.
Okay. Yep, that's how it works. Whether cards are good is a democratic process.
It is.
All right, we're moving into multicolored, and 2 things to note here. Damn. 2 things to note here. Every color pair gets a gold uncommon legendary creature, as well as a gold uncommon saga and a gold rare saga. So lots to cover here in multicolored. This set is really going to allow you to make some 3-color decks in limited, but is going to ask you to probably try to make a 2-color deck in limited every time, really disincentivizing monocolor. But here we do get a little bit of a look at what each color pair is trying to do. So we'll start with Simic, with Morite of the Frost. 2 a green and double blue for a legendary snow creature Shapeshifter. Changeling, it's every creature type. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's legendary and snow in addition to its other types. And if it's a creature, it enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it and has Changeling. So this comes in as legendary snow Changeling of another creature that you have. Another permanent you control. That's important. So you can copy artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers if you want to, and they become snow, if that's relevant. This is a hard card to evaluate, but it wouldn't surprise me if it saw some standard play. And I think the fact that it comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters and it contributes to your snow count, I think that might make it pretty good and limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like this card has got a lot going on. Like, it does a lot of different things.
This is one of the harder cards to evaluate, I think. Yeah. So we'll have to just see where it lands. I don't want to make a definitive call on it. But you probably want it if you're in a blue-green... You definitely want it if you're in a blue-green snow deck in limited. Time will tell if it's decent enough for standard. Sorry, the dog's being really clingy. You can hear her there. So next we've got Cole the Forge Master, Dwarf Warrior. Just a red and a white for a 2/2. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. Creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. So, if you have any creature tokens, so that immediately synergizes with all of the equipments that can make a token that have like a pseudo living weapon on them. That immediately sort of synergizes with them. They all get +1/+1, which is neat. And then, if you have, and this does not include himself, but if another one of your creatures has an equipment or an enchantment on it, it gets bounced back to your hand when it dies, so you can slap it back down, put the equipment back on it, But the thing is, they can just kill Cole before they kill whatever they're thinking about killing. But it is kind of pseudo-protection for your enchanted and equipped creatures in that way.
Yeah, and I think if you see this and if you see that land, the red-white one, that you can get an aura or an equipment. Yeah, I think that would be good with this.
Yeah, I think this pretty clearly tells us what red and white wants to do in limited without really any room for argument. It's equipment based, which is fun. I like equipment decks. Yeah. So Kardur Doomscourge is 2 a black and a red for a 4/3 Demon Berserker. Legendary. These are all legendary, of course. When it enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So that's a commander thing, of course. But they will attack you in constructed. That's like very, very not often do they reference multiplayer on standard cards. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So if they, have to attack badly because they're required to attack with all of their creatures, then you're going to profit off of blocking their creatures and killing them. This guy's basically a kill spell that's going to stick around because, they've probably got something smaller than 4/3 that they're forced to attack with and either waste a combat trick to keep it alive or just let Kardur eat it. And of course you don't have to block, but they have to attack. And then you get in a free attack next turn because all their creatures except the ones they played on that turn are tapped. Mm-hmm. So I think this card's awesome. I think this is one of the best uncommons in the set, easily.
I want to see this in Two-Headed Giant.
Yeah, it does affect both opponents. It does affect both opponents.
Yeah.
And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. Yeah, this is definitely a card to look out for in Two-Headed Giant. I wish COVID weren't a thing so we could play this set in Two-Headed Giant, which is my favorite way to play Magic is Two-Headed Giant pre-releases with my partner.
And I really wish. Sounds like my last name. That's pretty cool.
There's only 9 of these? Unless one of them is up here. Oh, it is. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was confused because I thought they were all 10. Okay. Harald, King of Skemfar. Now this is Tyvar, the new Planeswalker's older brother. He's 1 a black and a green for a 3/2 legendary elf warrior with menace. When he enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an elf, warrior, or Tyvar from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So he can grab his brother. He can be like, big bro, it's time for dinner. That's cute. But he can also just grab an elf or a warrior. I don't think this will be good enough to see play in like modern elves or anything, but if there's a green-black standard elves deck, it'll absolutely play this. You have 3 mana, 3/2 menace, and you can just fetch another elf off the top 5 cards of your library, or Tyvar if the deck ends up playing that. So I'm pretty high on this card. I think this card's pretty good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good too. I mean, a 3/2 for 3, and also, I think there is definitely like a ceiling for these cards whenever you're able to look at so many cards on the top of your library, and I feel like 5 is pretty good. Statistically, you're probably gonna get something in 5 cards, but some of the cards where it's just like look at the top 2 or look at the top 3, like statistically that's not very good.
Right.
So I think this is fine.
Yeah, I mean this is only letting you get something pretty specific.
Sure, but if you're
so the top 5 is probably how much they should give you, whereas like with Anticipate, let you take any card. 3 is probably fine. Yeah, but yeah, I think this card is very good.
But if you're playing one of those creature types, I think it's good.
Yeah. This is harder to evaluate in limited, where, there's a lot of elves and warriors, but there's also green and black cards. Plenty of green and black cards that don't fall into any of those categories. So this might whiff in limited, but even if it whiffs, it's a 3 mana 3/2 with evasion, so it didn't whiff that hard. You got to play a body. It's not like this is a spell that just grabs that. So I think this is great. Probably 3 stars in limited. I think 2 stars for standard. Maybe 3. Like, I think this will see some standard play if there's an elf deck in standard, which it looks like it's shaping up to be one. Yeah. So next we've got Furia, Judge of Valor. 2 a white and double black. Gotta hate the asymmetry. Or some of these legendaries have 2 of one color in their cost. Very cringe. For a 2/4 flying lifelink, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, which is like a sub-theme of white and black, even though it's also Angel Tribal, very confusing. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them in your hand and the rest in your graveyard. Do not know why this is a white-black thing. This just feels like a blue-red card. Other than the lifelink, like, this just feels like a blue-red card. Like, when you cast your second spell each turn, blue and red, once you cast extra spells, you get to do an anticipate with the rest of your graveyard. Like, nothing, this feels like the weirdest color pie break.
Not really. I mean,
You're just saying like it's a green white card.
No, I'm not. I wasn't even going to say anything about it being white. I was actually going to say that you're fueling your graveyard if you're playing black.
Sure, but like, red and blue want to have instants and sorceries in the graveyard too, like just as much as black might want creatures in the yard. This does not feel correct with the color pie. It's a good card. It's definitely a good card, but it does not feel correct with the color pie. I think it's a fine card. I don't think we'll see any constructed play. But unlimited, if they don't kill it the next turn, you're gonna probably get a free card off of it and put some stuff in your yard. And it's a 2/4 flying lifelink for 5, which is not the worst thing you've ever paid 5 mana for. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It's definitely not one of the best of these, though. So the next is Vega the Watcher, which is 1 a white and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. This is super vague on purpose, so that it synergizes with as much stuff as possible. And obviously the thing it's telling you to do in this set is to foretell spells and let you draw cards off of this. But remember, in Standard, there's plenty of adventure cards that are already good enough. And when you're casting a creature coming off of an adventure, it's coming from exile, so you're going to get to draw a card off of this. When you're casting a spell from your graveyard with Escape, you're going to be drawing a card off of Vega the Watcher. So I think this card has some potential. We'll see some constructed play, but it'll certainly be good and limited with every foretell card you can draft.
What about, I know I had a preview again, I'm sorry for spoiling things, but...
No, I mean, it's expected. We've seen the whole set.
So one card that allows you to bring something in from outside the game, does it work that too?
No, because that just puts something from outside the game on top of your deck.
But that's not actually casting it.
No, it's just putting it from outside the game on top of your deck.
Okay.
This is when you cast it from somewhere other than your hand. But, I mean, it's still good. There's a lot of things that cast stuff from your deck or cast stuff from your graveyard, whatever. I think this card is awesome.
And it's a Great Horned Owl, so it's even better.
I don't think Great Horned Owls have 3 eyes, but...
This one does.
Owned. So next we've got Narfi, Betrayer King, which is 3 a blue and a black for a 4/3 legendary snow creature zombie wizard. Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. And for triple snow, you can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I don't think you're often going to be casting this for its actual mana cost in Constructed. I think you're going to be bringing it back from the graveyard for triple snow. Just tap 3 snow lands, put it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. That's instant speed, providing an anthem effect to your snow creatures. I think this card's pretty solid. I think you should ignore the actual mana cost because it's pretty abysmal for a 5-drop. But getting this in the graveyard anyway, and then just bringing it out for 3 snow whenever you want at instant speed is pretty crazy.
It seems like it resembles the Escape, but for snow mana.
Kinda, yeah, except there's no real permanent cost to it. Like,
Right.
Escape, you're exiling things from your yard, so you can't escape more later. Mike says, you mind if I do that thing where I stand here weirdly and smile and nod and act like I know what's going on so I feel like I'm involved in the conversation? Not at all, you're welcome to. This set's fucking sweet.
That's how I feel right now.
I think you're gonna enjoy it. I think you're gonna like these cards. It's Viking themed. There's angels and snow zombies and shit, and giants. There's some sweet cards been revealed so far, and when we do our review of the best decks to brew on day 1, or the most fun decks to brew on day 1, we'll get you caught up.
Yeah, his response is basically why I didn't want there to be a face cam, because that's what I've been doing for the last hour.
Very cool's lol. I think you've been doing excellent commentary. So next we've got Agar the Freezing Flame. Not a snow creature. I think that they've done that kind of arbitrary in this set. That kind of bothers me. This is 1 a blue and a red for a 3/3 legendary giant wizard. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage by a giant wizard or spell you control, draw a card. So, kind of confusing wording just to make it work, but basically if your giants, wizards, or spells do excess damage, like basically do more damage than they need to kill a creature or a planeswalker, then you get to draw a card.
Okay, I didn't know if that meant like excess damage past.
Click on the card to make it bigger, they're kind of tiny. Okay. I guess we'll do that with each card we talk about from now on. My bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's alternate Norse art, like old Norse art looking versions of each of the cards. This is Agar. I guess we'll do that for all the ones coming up. What were you gonna say, dear?
Where your attack goes through the creature and then hits your opponent.
Like trample.
Yeah, trample. That's what I thought this was asking.
It basically works like trample, where if you would trample over, if you deal enough damage to trample over something, whether you have trample or not, you draw a card. If it's a giant, wizard, or spell. So if you use like the 2 mana deal 4 damage to a creature, and they didn't have 4, that didn't really help. Do whatever you want. That is unfortunate. I'm assuming you're watching this on your phone. You might not want to watch this on your phone if the cards are too small. That might just not be fixable. You might not be able to read cards on your phone from the stream. But we're going to read all the cards out loud. So, and next we've got Maya, Redegard Protector.
She perked up.
Yeah, our dog's name is Maya, and she heard that and got excited. So this is 2 a green and double white. And it's a 2/3, so 5 mana 2/3 probably should have a pretty strong effect. Human Warrior. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Off to a good start. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white Human Warrior creature token, which will be a 2/2 for as long as you have Maya out. Alright, I'm just in mod mode. It's cool. Oh, yeah, I gotcha. It's hard to do that from a computer. So, yeah, Maya, Redegard Protector, and it's got, the Norse art version. I think this is still too expensive for what it does.
I think if this is paired with Landfall in the last set, it would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's just too many better cards with Landfall from the last set that you wouldn't ever really want to play this. Yeah. I mean, what do you think of this card limited?
I really like when you get an added effect whenever you play a land, because otherwise it's pretty stale. You have to play it anyways, and so if you get something for playing a land, I think that's really cool. And especially this one, how many lands do you think you're gonna play a game after your 5th mana? Maybe 5.
But before this gets killed.
Sure.
Yeah, and this doesn't really trade with anything or block anything the turn it comes in very well. What you want out of a 5-drop is you're kind of moving into the next stage of the game and blanking your opponent's 2/2s and 3/3s, and this doesn't do that. When you play a 5-drop, you want to be here's my big guy. You can't really safely swing with your little guys anymore. But if your 5-drop is a 2/3, they're not going to feel too intimidated to swing with their little guys anymore.
I don't know. There are a lot of equipments that you can make this better, and there's a few cards that you can copy spells, so to have 2 of these out and getting 2 1/1s if there's a land that enters is pretty good.
This is legendary.
Yeah, but isn't there a card that copies something?
Right, but it's legendary, so you only have 1 out even if you have a copy.
That's what I'm saying. You can only have 1 out, but there's a card that makes a copy of another creature.
Right, and then that creature would have this creature's name. So it would have to, you can't copy legendary things, generally. There's some specific ones. More health for a 5-drop, I feel. Yeah, I think it would probably need more toughness. It'd be able to block well as a 5-drop before I would say that it would be good. I mean, I think it'd be fine in limited. Just if you're playing this as your 5-drop and your opponent's playing just a 5/5 with Vigilance or something, they're winning until you've made a lot of 1/1s with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to be proven wrong. We'll see, I guess. I'm really, really fucking excited to draft this set. I'm more excited for this set than I have been for many previously. And I want to scroll ahead a little bit real quick so we can get the other uncommon multicolored legendary real quick, because the empty Mythic Spoiler just put them out of order for some reason. But this is Sphela Ice Shaper, and this is one I hope we can agree on. Oh, I love that art. So this is a 1 red and a green for a legendary Snow Troll Warrior.
Or top end aggro, but green-white aggro? Yeah, I think that would be where it would be at home if it sees any play, is like being an Anthem effect for an aggressive deck.
That's what I was talking about.
In an aggressive deck?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Like in constructed?
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. I thought you just mentioned landfall. My bad. What's wrong?
Nothing.
Okay. Maybe, yeah. So this is Svella Ice Shaper. It's 1 red and a green for a legendary snow troll warrior. It's a 2/4 for 3. Pay 3 and tap. Create a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manalith. With tap, add 1 mana of any color. So, you can make mana rocks with this, which seems a little bit slow, but I don't know. For 6 a red and a green and tap, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can cast a spell from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, you're making manaliths to hopefully pay for this ridiculously expensive ability that just lets you look at the top 4 cards of your library and play a spell from among them. It's cool that this is a snow card that doesn't demand that you play other snow cards, so in limited you can basically ignore the snow part unless it's convenient for you or add something to your game plan. And I think that's the way a lot of the decent snow cards should be in terms of making them see limited play. Yeah, I think this card's pretty good. Just pooping out mana rocks. You get infinite mana rocks. What are your thoughts on this?
I hope that this character meets the other troll warrior that we saw earlier, because they both look kind of sad and they need a friend.
The one from the land?
Yeah.
True. That's the most important thing about this card. What is snow? Okay, so snow doesn't mean anything inherently. There are snow basic lands that you can draft, and there's snow dual lands that come in tapped that you can draft. And then there's some cards that give you bonuses if you spent snow mana on them, meaning mana from a snowy land or the snowy artifacts that this guy makes make snow mana. So we'll see later when we get into monocolor cards especially. There's a guy that when he attacks untaps all your snow permanents. There's a spell that lets you scry X, where X is the number of snow mana you spent on it, and then draw 3 cards. So the more snow you spent, the more snow stuff you have out, the better those cards are.
I think this card would be good with the runes and that other one, that just to ensure that you have either an artifact or a creature to put the rune on.
Yeah, so the rune is creatures or equipment it can go on.
Oh, I thought I said artifact.
Because it boosts. I mean, you might be able to put it on any artifact, but it boosts the enchanted creature or the equipped creature of the equipment that it's enchanting.
Mm.
So if you just enchanted a mana rock, you just get to draw a card.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's regular and snow mana. Yes, but snow mana can still be colored mana. A snow mountain makes a red snow mana, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it well.
So snow mana can be regular mana, but regular mana can't be snow.
Yeah, snow isn't a color or a
Yeah.
type. It's like I said, it's a type of mana. Snow isn't a color. Snow is just snow mana just describes mana made by snow permanents. Fuck that. Auto tapping on MTGA already sucks. Well, right, but you would only. It would. I guess the auto tapper might get confused by snow mana. Yeah, that's a good point. I think the auto tapper would tap your snow lands last. But you can just manually tap your mana like a big boy on Arena if you want to. I don't think that's that much to ask. But to evaluate Svella Ice Shaper, which is not a card that cares about other snow cards, but can make these manaliths that make snow mana, I think she's good for I think looking at how hard to activate the last ability is going to convince you this card is worse than it actually is. If you kind of ignore that and just treat it like something you're going to do once in a blue moon, a 2/4 for 3 is already pretty good because it blocks all their 2/4s or their 2/2s and eats them. And just pooping out mana rocks every turn is not awful, especially if you've got something you're working toward. And they do eventually have to kill her, or that 8 mana thing is going to become a reality because she can keep making more mana every turn. And if you miss your land drop on turn 4 and you don't have anything better to do, you have 3 mana because you casted her. You can just make a manalith, and then you didn't miss your land drop, kind of.
Yeah, I just hope she finds her friend.
I hope she finds a friend too. That's all we can really hope for out of this set. So on to the uncommon sagas. First we've got the Trickster Gods Heist. I don't think these got alternate art. No, they did not. Okay, so the Trickster Gods Heist was 2 a blue and a black for a saga. 1. You may exchange control of 2 target creatures. 2. You may exchange control of 2 target non-basic, non-creature permanents that share a card type. 3. Target player loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. That's fine. Like, each of these modes are not worth 4 mana on their own, but, you know, I mean, you give your opponent your crappiest creature for their best creature, which on turn 4 is probably not going to be that big of a difference, but late in the game really could be. You know, this could be like, I'm going to give you my 1/1 bird with flying that I made off of some other card. You give me your 6/6 lifelink. You give me your angel token or whatever. And then, you know, you can trade like artifacts or enchantments or lands. The second mode is just going to not happen often. Although, you know, you got to be a little bit careful. You could get, like, if your opponent... Well, I guess it's a May. You can take your opponent's enchantment and give them this, and then just, you know, eat the life loss the next turn when this cracks.
This is just really confusing for me. Like,
yeah, this card depends on the situation. It's either going to be an absolute fucking blowout because you get the best possible value out of both of the 2 first modes, or it's going to be terrible. You're going to exchange 2 creatures that are basically the same anyway, and then you're not going to be able to do the second effect, and then you're going to drain them for 3, and you're going to have wasted your 4-drop.
yeah, I think Unlimited, where you're sort of insured to play creatures non-basic, or like permanents, you know, this might be better than in Constructed because, like, you're not insured to play, like, you could be playing Control with, like, 2 creatures and they might not have played them yet.
Right.
So,
yeah.
You might be missing one of the steps. But
yeah, I mean, I guess the real game here is play, like, the cheapest, shittiest Planeswalker you can find and try to trade it for their Ugin with the second mode, which I think is spicier than it is actually fun, actually good. I think this is not very good.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think the fair verdict on this is that it's not very good. So we'll move on to Invasion of the Giants. I love this art a lot. I like the shield that sort of depicts the Giants coming in. So this is a blue and a red saga. First mode, scry 2. Okay. Second mode, draw a card, then you may reveal a giant card from your hand. When you do, Invasion of the Giants deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So, alright. Scry 2 and then draw a card. I'm not mad at that. This is, you know, kind of a what's it called? Not Opt, not Serum Visions. Ponder. Preordain. Ponder. Yeah, it's Ponder, but separated over 2 modes. And then the third one is the next giant spell you cast this turn costs 2 less to cast. That shock's not often going to happen. I think if you build a blue-red deck that plays like 4 Bone Crusher Giant and, like, you know, find an excuse to play a couple more giants, this card will be fine. You know, it makes, you know, like, best case scenario, you're grabbing Bone Crusher Giant, revealing it to shock something, and then you can still play the adventure mode. And then you cast it for 1 red. Get a 4/3. Yeah, I think that's not terrible, but we'd have to see other good giants, which we can debate about the other giants we'll see in this deck. We'll see in this set whether they're good, but we'll see. Ironically, this is kind of a non-bo with Agar because you don't get to draw a card off of the second mode because this isn't a giant or wizard or a spell. It's an ability on Invasion of the Giants. I kind of wish they'd let you have the giant in your hand actually deal 2 damage, but it doesn't matter. Other than with that, like, weird specific thing. And you'd have to kill a planeswalker with 1 loyalty on it. Never mind. I'm being pedantic. How do you feel about Invasion of the Giants?
Sagas are kind of confusing to...
Isn't History of Benalia like your favorite card?
No. Yes. But, yeah, I mean, normally... History of Benalia was weird because normally people wanted to get that off of the board before turn 3 because it was really good. So these are really hard.
Or to answer both of the knights so that the final thing doesn't do anything.
Yeah. So I guess I'm sort of bitter about that experience and I don't really know how to assess these.
Yeah, I think you want to assess them as if, like, you're not guaranteed to actually get all of the modes.
Yeah.
Like, some of them aren't going to happen, and is the card still good if that happens? And I think it's fine here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this card's fine. So next is an interesting one. This is Forging the Tyrite sword. Tyrite? What do you think that is? Forging the Tyrite Sword. 1 a red and a white. Modes 1 and 2 just create treasure tokens, so they're kind of discounting you on the spell. And then the last mode, search your library for either Halvar, God of Battle, or an equipment card, reveal it and put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. So I think this answers our question. If you could grab the gods with by grabbing an equipment, then it wouldn't have had to specify. So yeah, we can infer from this that double-faced cards that have an equipment on the backside are not equipments in your deck, which is how I thought it worked, but good to know for sure. I think this card is very slow. The upside of that land that grabs an equipment or an aura is that, you want to play lands anyway. You don't want to play sagas that don't really do anything anyway.
Well, isn't the treasure token, isn't it basically a land?
Well, that you can use once, yeah. You sacrifice it. But you had to pay 3 for this, and you're getting to search for something 2 turns later.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely unplayable and constructed. Whether you'd want this in limited kind of depends on if you drafted Halvar, God of Battle, and if you did, this card's pretty fucking good.
Just in limited when you get to turn 3,
Yeah.
I don't even need to do this because I didn't draft either of those things.
Right. I don't actually get to search my deck. I just play this for the 2 treasure tokens.
The art was cool, I thought I'd throw it in. Don't actually have any of those things.
Based. I think if you got a couple of the Sword of Living Weapon equipments, the ones where you get to make a token when it comes in, if you pay extra and immediately attach it to it, then this is pretty good. Getting the 2 treasure tokens, holding onto them so you can play the sword and make the angel with it, and you get to fetch the sword off this, it's fine. But I think that's the best case scenario. In the best case scenario, this is probably still worse than most uncommons you can pick up in a draft.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. If you can get an equipment, you're not actually having to, I don't know. This is weird.
Yeah, I think this card's bad. I think a lot of these sagas are not quite as good as they used to make them, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
So next we've got Fall of the Imposter. Tyvar kind of sus. I just wanted to go ahead and make the joke and be annoying and cringe. I don't. Among Us, the Imposter.
Oh,
It's just be thankful that you don't get it.
I don't know that.
Okay, it's the most annoying game that spawned the most unfunny memes in the past several years, in my opinion. I mean, okay, I think it's cool for the people that enjoy it. I do not, and I think the memes are very annoying. It's like how you feel about the Bernie Sanders in the chair memes.
I mean, some of those are funny, but it's tired already.
Some of them are funny, but the vast majority of them were made by, shit libs. Follow the Imposter is 1 a green and a white. For the first 2 modes, it's just put a pulse on counter on up to 1 target creature, which I think is probably more relevant than making a treasure token.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. By a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And then the last one is exile a creature with the greatest power among creatures target opponent controls. So this is kind of weird in that you just have to target your opponent, and then you get to choose the creature if it's a tie. And if not, you just exile it. So this gets around big hexproof creatures. If it's their biggest hexproof creature, it's gone.
Yeah, this is nice. You don't really see exile a creature for white or green.
White gets a couple for big creatures every set.
Yeah, but it's way more expensive than that. The downside of this card is having to wait 2 turns to be able to do it. But
right.
I don't know. It seems okay.
I think the other cool thing about this is it'll always hit something. If your opponent doesn't play their big thing because they don't want to lose it to the 3rd mode, if they have a 2/2 out, this will kill a bear.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the best. I think this is definitely the best uncommon saga we've seen so far.
Yeah.
I think this is pretty high pickable. The mana in this set looks pretty easy too, with the all 10 common tap dual lands. So picking a multicolored card early is not as much of a detriment as it is in most draft formats. So yeah, I'm pretty good on that. So this is Binding the Old Gods. 2 a black and a green. Number 1, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. 2, search your library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. 3, creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn.
Wait, wasn't there a black-green saga that did this? All these things?
Mm-mm.
Really?
There was a black-green card that did the first 2. It was an instant in one of the Ravnica sets. Yeah. Death Bloom. Oh, let's check the thesaurus. Yep, Desperate. Right
Yeah.
there. That one.
The art looks kind of similar too.
Is this Seth McKinnon? No, this is Victor Adame Mangas. I like this. Victor Adame Mangas, yeah. This card, I like this card. I think it's good. It's a removal spell for 4, and then you get to fetch a forest. And then the Gaining Death Touch is probably the least relevant mode. Like, worst case scenario, your opponent just doesn't block that turn, I guess. Like, I don't know.
So when it says just a forest card, it can't be snow.
Wait, is this, it can be any forest. So you can actually grab one of the tapped dual forests.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
You grab a Shockland.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it comes in tap, but yeah,
Sure,
that's
but,
pretty great. And you can grab a basic snow
It's
forest.
gonna come in tapped anyways, like those cards that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So,
might as well.
yeah, no, that's an extra layer of good on this
Yeah.
card. You're playing like a 2 or 3 color deck. You get to grab the land. This will fix you if you were able to draft those cards, or just if you're playing this in like a Sultai Snow deck in Standard. Yeah, that'll grab that, but all your lands will be snow lands in that case. But this will still grab a tapped Snow Duel, so I think this card not one to sleep on. I think this is probably the best one we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving you an edge too. Like, you get to play 2 lands in a turn, and one of them is tapped, but like next turn you're up 2, so that's pretty good.
No, yeah, absolutely, and you remove something on turn 4. Like, yeah, this card's definitely the best saga we've seen so far, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So next we've got Kaldheim's Vicious Return, 2 a black and a red. 1, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, Kaldheim's Vicious Return deals 3 damage to any target. So you can sacrifice a creature, bolt something for the first mode, which is not the same as just destroying a non-land permanent. That doesn't even just remove a creature. It removes a mana rock. It removes your opponent's saga. That card's good. Okay, number 2, each player discards a card. Are you laughing at my voice crack?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just that you went back to that one.
And then number 3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. It gains haste until next turn, whatever. I'm not high on this card. I think the first mode is pretty bad. Sacrificing a creature to bolt something for 4 mana is pretty bad. Each player discards a card is 2-sided, and sometimes, like, unless your hand's empty, it's just as likely to fuck over your opponent as it is to fuck over your opponent. And then, reanimating something with a +1/+1 counter and haste on it is obviously good, but this is so far from something like the Eldest Reborn, one of the really good sagas we saw forever ago.
You get Krogsa back.
And then it immediately just goes back into the yard.
Yeah.
It didn't escape, so you don't get to keep it.
Alright.
But sacking and damage is good for black. That sounds busted? The Binding the Old Gods I think definitely is very good. I think it will certainly see some standard play if that's what you're calling busted. Not for 4 mana. Like red, you can, there's an enchantment for red where you can pay 1 mana and sack a creature to do a damage to something. Like, there's just way more efficient ways to do it than with this saga. Like, it's not like you can sacrifice as many creatures as you want to bolt as many things as you want. You can just sacrifice one of your creatures to bolt one thing on the first step of this saga. You get to do it once. It would probably be fine if it was sack any number of creatures and do that many bolts.
I think it's fair to say that you're probably not going to get to the 3rd step, so doing both of those things for 4 mana is awful.
Wait, how are you not going to? I think the 3rd step is the best step. How are you not getting to the 3rd step?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you
They're
said
gonna
that you
remove
were. Yeah.
They're just not always going to have the tools to do that, though, especially.
Not always,
limited.
but like probably 50% of the time.
I don't even think 50% of the time. Like, enchantment removal is just not something you play in limited because, like, it's not consistently going to get there, so they would have to have just, like, generic removal that can hit anything, like Binding the Old Gods. And for that, they have to be playing green and black. Which, I guess preventing your opponent from getting to the busted last step of a saga is a good reason to play removal like that, but it's not good enough.
Well, I think you also have to, like, contextualize this. Think about when Dominaria was being played, and that one set that had a bunch of enchantments. Enchantment and artifact hate was more prevalent in those formats then. So, like, you can assume that, like, people are going to be playing artifact and enchantment hate here because there's so many enchantments and artifacts that are decent and probably going to be played. So...
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Maybe there's a really good limited, like green spell for removing enchantments in this limited format, but it would have to do something else. It can't just be enchantment removal. It would have to also, like, draw a card or something. We'll see. You seem to be higher on this card than I am.
Not really. I think maybe a 2.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with you. 2 unlimited, probably 0 constructed. So, Ascent of the Worthy. 1, a white, and a black. For mode 1 and 2 is choose a creature you control. Until your next turn, all damage that would be dealt to the creatures you control is dealt to that creature instead. So one of your creatures just takes damage for all your other creatures for 2 turns. Which is pretty good, you put that on a 1/1 and you just swing your biggest creatures with impunity. And then for 3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a flying counter on it. That creature is an angel warrior in addition to its other types.
Wait, so is this like a couple sets ago where these things are actually counters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're doing the ability counters from Ikoria and they're just making them on a couple cards. Which I think is the correct thing to do with that. Like, you just using that mechanic in other sets is probably smart.
Is Ikoria and this going to be together?
Mini metas are a thing. I guess, but like metas that last for like a couple days and like our specific changes to lists might lead, like if a saga is really good. If a saga is really good, I think you're better off just sort of vaguely playing around the specific effect of that saga and not just including enchantment removal in every deck, like in the main board. What were you saying about Ikoria?
Is this set going to be with Ikoria?
Like in terms of legality?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ikoria came out during the pandemic.
Okay.
You don't remember?
I haven't been standard in such a long time.
Oh, that was the one we didn't do a pre-release for, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Throw the Bell Drain was the last one that I did.
No, we did Heroes Beyond Us. Remember? We were Heroes Beyond Eve.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was just concerned because this has counters in it and I didn't know how that would interact with that set that also had counters in it.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, they just interact the same way. It's only on a couple cards in this set. I think that's what they're going to do going forward, which I like.
What's the pros and cons of that?
Oh, I just think it's good. I just think it's good for them to have it design. Like the way it interacts with other cards is minimal, and it just allows them to have access to new kind of effects. Like you can have sorceries that put ability counters on stuff, or like whatever else. I think it's good to have around. Like it's kind of like how they invented sagas, and now like they can put sagas in sets. It's like a new technology to have, I guess.
What I'm asking is like, what are the pros and cons to having a counter rather than just like doing something flying, or is it the same?
It hardly ever matters, I would say. Yeah, I think the situations where it matters are pretty minimal. It's easier to keep track of with a counter. They've never just given thing like this creature has flying now, unless it's like by an enchantment or an equipment. So it's always been instance or sorceries just doing it until the end of turn, but now it can be permanent.
Okay.
So this is the 3 seasons, total landscaping. Green and a blue for Saga. Number 1 is mill 3 cards. That's you. Only 3 cards in case that wasn't clear. Number 2, return up to 2 target snow permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. 3, choose 3 cards in each graveyard. Their owners shuffle those cards into their libraries. So I don't know why this wasn't a snow enchantment, but a snow saga. But yeah, returning up to 2 snow permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand is huge, especially if like all of your lands are snow. Which if you're playing this in constructed, all your lands are going to be snow. You're going to play, like Yorn. You're going to play a lot of snow cards. This is always going to hit 2 in those decks. And then the 3 is choose 3 cards in each graveyard. So you choose the 3 things that you kind of might want to draw later, and from your opponent's graveyard you choose like Uro or whatever. Yeah, extra good and 2-headed giant.
Because your ally does too, right?
Yep. Yeah, you get to pick them.
All 4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both of your opponents. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That is pretty good. You're the one who's actually milled 3 cards, so you're more likely to like have stuff you might want to shuffle back in. But
sure,
you're,
but like,
yeah, I
if
mean,
your
late in the game,
opponent's
maybe,
just sitting there with something like that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this card will be excellent in constructed. I don't think it'll do much in limited, but I think in a snow deck in constructed, this is basically like picking 2 cards to just put in your hand for 2 mana, 2 permanent cards, and then like 3 cards in each graveyard and shuffle them back in. Like just a little bit of graveyard hate on that last mode. The big part is the first 2 modes, though. Yeah, I think this card's insane in constructed. I'm gonna give this 4 stars in constructed. This is gonna kickstart like a blue-green or Sultai snow deck. I'm predicting it here. Yeah, I think this card's phenomenal. So we got the next saga.
No, they're friends.
Arnie slays the troll.
No. That's why they're so sad.
Because Arnie killed him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for... So this has been Kaldheim lore with Casey. She's telling us what the lore is for this set. Arnie slays the troll is a red and a green. Target creature you control fights up to one target creature you don't control. So, yeah, alright. Fight spell for 2 mana. You gotta give me something better. Step 2, add a red, put 2 +1/+1 counters up to one target creature you control. That's pretty good.
That is very good.
And then for 3, you gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Okay, yeah, I mean, like...
you're at least guaranteed 2.
If you had a 0 power creature beforehand?
Yeah.
Well, no, you're not, because if this mode doesn't go off, because you don't have a creature, then next turn you could still not have a creature.
Never mind.
I think this is usually going to be a fight spell. Your creature's probably going to trade with your opponent's creature, and then you have to actually play some. You have to have a creature right when you draw on the second turn, or else the mode just goes away. You don't get to play a creature for that turn and then do that to it.
Oh yeah, because sagas.
Yeah, because sagas happen on your draw. So I think this is deceptively bad. In Magical Christmas Land, this is an insane amount to be doing for 2 mana, but in your actual average game, it's probably going to be pretty bad.
I don't know. Well, yeah, I think I do agree with you because this is a 2 mana spell, and especially in limited, you often don't have a creature on your first turn.
Mm.
So maybe in constructed this would be okay, but
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to play this on turn 2. This is a removal spell.
Yeah.
You're going to play it at whatever other stage in the game, but I'm not high on this.
I thought this was really good at first. That's embarrassing.
I mean, it's fine. It's a hard card to evaluate. Sagas generally are. Nico Defies Destiny. 1 a white and a blue. First step. You gain 2 life for each foretold card you own in exile. So foretell are those cards you can pay 2 and set them aside, and then cast them for cheaper later. So for each card you have that you have set aside, you gain 2 life with that first step. On step 2, you add a blue and a white, and you can spend this mana only to foretell cards or to cast spells that have foretell. So that includes ones that are in your hand, even if you didn't foretell them earlier. But so it's a little bit more open-ended. But yeah, I mean, you can just foretell a card from your hand for free with that second step, basically. And then the third step is return target card with foretell from your graveyard to your hand. So a little recursion for your foretell cards. The question is this worth 3 mana?
I think the first mode on this is really nice because those foretell cards are just kind of sitting there, not really doing anything, and if you can get something from them 2 times in a game, because obviously you're gonna get something from them when they're actually being played, after the foretell, but you're getting something from this too.
Yeah, but you have to put them all down before that does anything. I think the big thing is the 2 and 3. I think the 1 is the least powerful thing on the card, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the 2, letting you foretell a card for free, but the issue is you paid 3 mana for this. You could have just used that to foretell the card and have a mana left over. The returning a card of foretell from your graveyard to hand is really good, especially because there's a lot of powerhouse foretell cards. There's a 3 mana board wipe. Yeah. There's the horse. There's a counter spell. There's a lot of stuff that you can be returning with this. So I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is very good, and it's really nice. Like what I was saying, it's really nice to. It doesn't really feel as bad of a risk because you're getting something while it's in exile, and then you're getting something when it comes into play.
Right.
So.
No,
I'm thinking it's just way better than it is, but.
No, I mean, I think you're properly high on the card. I think it's pretty good. So now we're gonna move into the rares. The rare multicolored cards, of which there are a few. And then we may call it quits for the night, or we may do white. We'll decide when we get to the end how fatigued we are. So Sarulf, Realm Eater, is 1 a black and a green for a legendary wolf 3/3. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put to a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sarulf. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Sarulf has 1 or more counters on it, you may remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. So you have to remove all of them at once. You don't get to just remove as many as you want. And it gets rid of all other non-land permanents. He eats all of them. They're gone. As for putting counters on him, it's not that hard. When your opponent cracks a fetch land is the first thing that came to mind when I read this card. He gets counter. When your opponent's creatures die, which doesn't include from his ability because he exiles them, so obviously that doesn't make him get bigger again. But yeah, I mean, even ignoring the board wipe after this, which you will use occasionally, just getting bigger every time your opponent puts something in the yard. Like, this is obviously insane and limited. It's a 3-mana, like 6/6 or whatever. Like, a lot of the time, it's just 3-mana 3 just keeps getting bigger and maybe wipes the board. But in Constructed, I think this even has some potential chops. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I had to reread it a couple of times because it's a little bit confusing, but I think it's really cool that you can just take counters off of it in order to exile something. Like,
it's all other non-land permanents that are that much or less.
How many counters there are?
How many counters are on it? Yeah. This is weird because Magic cards do that. On your upkeep, you can remove. You have to remove all of them or none of them. But if you remove all the 1/1 counters, you exile all other non-land permanents that cost less than or equal to the number of counters you remove. So if you remove 3, you get rid of all other non-land permanents that cost 3 or less.
Okay, so this is kind of like that land where you put counters on it. And
yes, except instead of just equal to, it's equal to or less than.
Okay.
And it doesn't get rid of itself.
Oh, well then I think this is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card's... The thing is, like, this is a powerful card, but it also eats a Doomblade. It dies to removal.
Oh.
It doesn't do anything when it comes in or dies. Now, like, some cards are strong enough to overcome this, and I think the argument now is, like, is this card strong enough to overcome it? And I think you can make a case that it is. You know, you look at something like Elder Gargaroth, like, that card does, like, a million fucking things. It looks really strong. It's 5-mana 6/6 with 3 keywords and a triggered ability. But it doesn't see much standard play because it dies to instant speed removal or sorcery speed removal. And this, I think, might fall in the same boat, but it might not. You know, it keeps getting bigger. I wouldn't be surprised if this saw some standard play.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's going to be okay.
I think it's very self-evidently good and limited.
Yeah.
Like a lot of rares, but yeah.
And it feels nice to have effectively a board wipe through a creature.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, and I really like that. You can sort of... You can work up to something that's a big threat to you, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think if this sees a little weird fringe play in Modern Juns, too, like, you know, they crack a fetch, and then you remove this counter and just get rid of all their 1-drop creatures. Or they crack 2 fetches, and you remove this and get rid of all their 2-drop
My
creatures.
soul sisters.
Oh, yeah. Well, you don't play fetch lines in there, so you're golden.
Yeah.
But if any of your permanents you put in the discard, then it can crack. You know, if you crack your Martyr, then this gets a counter, and then it can remove the counter and get rid of all your Seraph Sentence.
Ooh, no thank you.
Spicy. I don't think this will see Modern play, but it'd be funny if it did.
No.
This is a cool cube card, too. I like to keep an eye out for those.
Yeah.
So next is the Raven's Warning. Now we're getting into the rare sagas, which it appears there's one for every color combination again.
Yeah.
So this is 1, a white and a blue. For 1, step 1, create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. You gain 2 life. Nothing wrong with that. Step 2, whenever one or more of your flyers hit an opponent this turn, look at that player's hand and draw a card. I'm keeping an eye on it. And then step 3, you may put a card you own from outside the game on top of your library. This card does a lot, but like each of these effects are probably worth 1 mana, and so putting them together on a saga just makes you wait for them. I don't know how I feel about this. I think like making the bird and gaining life is obviously cool. If that dies, though, you basically don't get step 2.
Oh, the bird?
Yeah. Like if they kill the bird, your step 2 is basically moot, unless you had another flyer. Which maybe you did, but if you didn't, then you know you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. In limited, especially, I think you're expected to hit with the bird. It's unlikely that you'll have something else.
Yeah.
And putting a card you own from outside the game on top of your library is cool. For those who are a little less initiated, this does not mean literally any card from your collection. If you're playing limited, it means another card from your pool that you didn't include in your deck. And if you're playing a constructed format, it means from your sideboard, which is still very good. You know, sideboards are packed with silver bullets often, so you know you just grab the card that's the best against your opponent and put it on top of your deck. You're going to draw it next turn. And in limited, you know, this lets you be safe to put like weird niche spells in your sideboard, or like you know that artifact that we saw, the 2-drop that shuts stuff off. You know, maybe you can grab that with this, but this is a rare. I think this is pretty reasonable to high pick and draft, just given the fact that you get a 1/1 flyer, gain 2 life, and you get to draw a card. Like that's a lot for 3 mana. Putting a card you own from exile or from outside the game on top of your library that can just be a land if you're short a land and limited because your pool contains infinite basic lands, so you can just grab a basic land. But you can also just grab a card that didn't quite make the cut because it was situational, but it's good in this situation. So I love this card in draft. What are your thoughts?
I was just sort of thinking about like what happened in Norse mythology, and I'm trying to like figure out where this is coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just read today about like basically the ecological pressures that Vikings put onto like Greenland and Norway's land, and yeah, I'm sort of caught up in that. This card, I really like the art. This card is kind of difficult for me to assess.
Yeah, sagas are like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if this will be good and constructed, but maybe. Grabbing stuff out of your sideboard is cool, especially in like in best of 1 on Arena where your sideboard otherwise doesn't exist. These cards let you sort of like that's why Karn was so good in best of 1, because you can literally just fill your sideboard with stuff to grab off of this. You don't have to think about actually sideboarding things in.
Yeah, and you get to play with more than 50 or 60 cards in standard or 40 cards in limited without like being at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting. So Cauldron the Rhyme Staff is on the back side of a green card, so we'll talk about it later. Showdown of the Scalds. 2, a red and a white for a saga. Step 1, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Steps 2 and 3, whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I think this is pretty bad. It's going to give you, a total of 4 cards that you can look at. You can play them next turn. But it's you're kind of being shoehorned into playing those cards, or else you've kind of wasted this enchantment. And putting +1/+1 counters on your creatures is fine. I think the second 2 modes are hardly relevant. I think you're mainly looking at this for the first mode, and it's it's 1 more card than Concentrate gives you, but you have to play them on the next turn. So yeah, I'm not high on this. I think it's one of the worst ones.
Yeah, I think it's taking a lot of options away from you, kind of like what you were explaining, because you are sort of incentivized to play the 4 cards so they're not wasted. Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah. So next we've got Immersturm Predator. 2, a black and a red for a 3/3 flying vampire dragon. Cool creature type. I don't think we've had one of those before. Whenever Immersturm Predator becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on Immersturm Predator. So every time it attacks, which is usually how creatures become tapped. But you can also sacrifice another creature. Immersturm Predator gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it, which will activate its ability. And often you're going to be exiling a card from your opponent's graveyard. But if they don't have any, you can exile one from your graveyard. Is up to 1, so you don't have to. You still get to put the counter on it even if you don't exile a card.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So you get to exile a card from your opponent's yard, or even if they don't have one, you still get the counter. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer that gets bigger. I don't really understand why this is red, but I guess because second creatures is red now too. I think this card's obviously great and limited. I don't think it'll see any constructed play just because of the way that it protects itself is by sacrificing other creatures, and only gets indestructible, so it doesn't survive being sacked or exiled or something. So I'm not high on this card for constructed, but I think it's obviously good and limited. But I think that's going to be the case for any gold rare.
Yeah. I think it's nice that you can either exile one of your opponent's creatures from or cards from the graveyard, and you get a 1/1, but you don't have to if they don't have anything. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, it's not like Clothis where you have to get rid of your own yard if they don't have anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
But I think it's also not as good as Clothis in the other ways that maybe matter more. But yeah, I think it's a fine card.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new creature type, I think. I always like it when we get new creature types. Still waiting on a Lurgoyf Advisor.
I'm still waiting on more bears.
Yeah, man, if only Magic would print a bear. There haven't been any of those yet. Harald unites the elves. 2 a black and a green. Step 1. Hold on. Step 1, mill 3 cards. You may put an elf or Tyvar card from your graveyard onto the battlefield. There's not a lot of elves that are big enough that you'd be getting an actual mana discount by doing this, but in Modern there's Ezeri, which is your elf win condition. Step 2, put a +1/+1 counter on each elf you control. That's kind of huge. Step 3, whenever an elf you control attacks this turn, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So they're sort of hunting your opponent's creatures. You swing with 5 things, get rid of their only a couple blockers. I think this card will see some play in Modern Elves.
Yeah, I think this is very good, especially if you're playing Elf Tribal.
Yeah, I think Standard we lack the density of good elves for this to see play, but I would not be surprised if this saw play in Modern Elves.
So, the first thing is kind of like Collected Company?
Yeah, maybe. I think you would want to make sure you have something decent to get in there before you play this, just in case you don't mill anything off of the 3.
Yeah.
And it's not awful to just get a 2 or 3 drop off of this, but I mean, obviously you would prefer,
Right.
something insane.
But still, if you're playing Tribal, you're often going to get effects from other things.
Yeah.
If that comes into play, it's probably going to trigger something else.
This can hit Herald itself, like the guy we saw way down below.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the one that's in the name.
Yeah, I think this is very good.
Yeah, I think this card's awesome. I think it'll definitely see some Modern play, maybe also some Standard play. But yeah, I think this card's pretty self-evidently great. All 3 of these abilities are arguably worth 2 mana or 3 mana, so... Yeah, the first one's probably worth 4 mana on its own. If this were just a sorcery that did the first mode, it would be fine, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably Modern playable. So next we've got the Bears of Lityara. 1 a green and a blue for Saga. Step 1, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So it is technically a bear because it's every creature type. Step 2, any number of target shapeshifter creatures you control have base power or toughness 4/4, so this is just for the rest of the game.
Oh.
And then step 3, choose up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Each creature with power 4 or greater you control deals damage equal to its power to that permanent. So basically, you're going to just remove one of your opponent's creatures or planeswalkers. This card's weird. Yeah, you're only getting 1 2/2, and then it's becoming a 4/4 with the second step. And if you happens to play another shapeshifter, which I don't know if there's another good cheap one, then that also becomes a 4/4, and then you get to remove something. I think this card's mediocre, hard to see where it would see a lot of play.
Bear Tribal. Because what you do is you play a Eula.
Okay.
And then what you do is play Mother Bear. And you get a bunch of little cubs, and then you
By
get
exiling her from your yard for 5?
No, just forget about the rules for a second. And then...
that's how we evaluate cards.
and then you're going to get to the second mode, and you're going to make all the cubs 4/4s.
This is target shapeshifter creatures you control, which the cubs would not be.
Well, the first mode, I guess. I'm just making
that
it
just
work
makes
in my
another
head.
bear, but it does not work that way and you're on paper, which is where it matters. I'm excited to see this deck, dear. I love you and I'm proud of you, and I'm excited to watch this happen. I think it'll be cool. I support you, and this is good stuff. So the Battle of Frost and Fire. 3 a blue and a red. Step 1. 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. That's pretty huge. This is a board wipe when it comes down. This is, 1 more mana for Storm's Wrath, just doesn't hit giants, which is honestly going to be good for you if you're playing stuff like Bone Crusher Giant. It gets a pass, it doesn't get killed by this. Step 2 is just scry 3. Step 3, whenever you cast a spell with CMC 5 or greater this turn, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So I think the last mode on this is probably the least relevant. Although, I don't know. I mean, you follow this up with another Battle of Frost and Fire and get that trigger. I think the first 2 modes are... the first mode is awesome. It's a board wipe, and then you scry 3, and then you maybe draw some cards. I think this card's insane. I think it's very good.
Yeah, I'm traumatized for every time that I see, remove everything except non-X cards because I played Chandra once and I was playing my opponent and I was like, oh my gosh, I can win this game if I just get rid of all of their creatures.
Yeah, the pre-release where you got the Chandra?
Yeah.
But like 3 of them were elementals and they didn't get killed by your minus?
They were all elementals. It was an elemental tribal deck.
Did they let you take it back when when you realized that it didn't do what you wanted it to do and just
they
let you plus it instead?
No.
At pre-release they actually have to do that. That's the REL.
I was like, oh, he doesn't notice what I'm about ready to do.
No, he noticed.
He noticed,
Yeah,
and then he was just
noticed
like,
what you were about ready to do.
So anytime that I see those, I just think back to that moment, like, oh, I thought I was so cool, but...
For future reference, they are required to let you go back on that at pre-release, because pre-release is for learning the cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, call the judge next time. So next we've got the green and white one, Battle of Bredagard. Hopefully this one will not trigger you as much. Step 1, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Step 2, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Step 3, they kiss. No, step 3, choose any number of artifact tokens and or creature tokens you control with different names. For each of them, create a token's copy of it. I said that this is like the new, what was my hot take? This is the new History of Benalia. Which it's not quite History of Benalia, but like, you know, if you keep those 2 tokens alive, you're getting extra copies of them. If you got a treasure, you're getting an extra treasure. If you've made a token that's a copy of something, you get another one of that. You know, if you've made a shapeshifter bear from the Bears of the Yard. But in all seriousness, if you get a knight, if you got a knight out, you get another knight. If you played wolf pup, you get another wolf. I guess that's not standard anymore. I'm trying to think of things to break this card with, and in all fairness, there's not many, but I guess the troll that makes a bunch of manoliths, you get more manoliths.
What about Archon?
Oh yeah, Pegasi. You get Pegasi from that Archon when you play enchantments, the constellation trigger.
Yes.
So this gives you another one of those. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of little incidental value off this card. That ultimate's not as like situational as you think it is. And I mean, at the very least, like if you can keep the tokens alive, this is netting you 4 1/1s for 3 mana, which is something you should never be sad to have.
And then that life gain angel, if you have more than 7 life of your starting total, you get.
You get 4/4. Oh yeah, there's shit ton of stuff that makes 4/4 angel tokens of flying individuals in here.
Good.
Are you building around this card?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you found your pet card of the set, huh? Yeah. All right,
So
I'm excited to see these Battle of Bredagard decks.
So I'm with Will. This is gonna be my card that I think is good.
Okay. Yeah.
No
He's
one
got
else
his vote.
does.
You've got Battle of Bredagard. No, I think people are talking about Battle of Bredagard.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
think you're the
don't
only one.
follow anything like that.
Okay. So the next one is the Bludski Massacre, which is 1 black and a red. Step 1, create a 2/3 red demon berserker creature token with menace. 2, Berserker. Sorry, the Pokemon Berserker. You get a 2/3 with menace. Step 2, create.
Does it have menace?
It's a Pokemon.
Yeah. Isn't that an attack?
No.
Oh.
Step 2, whenever a Berserker attacks this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. That's pretty good. Step 3, add a red for each Berserker you control. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana on steps and phases. So, the Bludski Massacre, you get in 1 thing, you're going to draw a card if you swing with it the next turn, which will be easier to swing with because it's got menace. This strikes me as good and limited. I don't think there will be a Berserker deck in Standard. I mean, I guess there's a lot of cards that make 2/1 Dwarf Berserkers in this set that this could interact with favorably, but I think you're more likely to get those cool interactions in Limited than you are in Standard. So I'm not high on the Bludski Massacre. I'd give it like 4 stars in Limited. Like, it's obviously pretty good, but I think probably like 1 star in Constructed. Maybe you'll see a little play. What are your thoughts on the Bludski Massacre?
I don't know really. I think that this card does a good job of like building you up after turn 3, but because it's sort of giving you resources. I don't know.
Kinda. It's only giving you resources when Berserkers attack, which
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find good Berserkers that aren't just the token that this makes.
Yeah.
I'm not high on this, but a card I'm very high on for Modern. Waking the Trolls for a red and a green. Step 1,
Sleepy
destroy target land.
Ooh.
Step 2, put target land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Step 3, choose target opponent. If they control fewer lands than you, create a number of 4/4 green troll warrior creature tokens with trample equal to the difference. This is going in Modern Ponza. Modern Ponza is going to be my deck now. I'm giving up on Devotion. Ponza is the deck. Well, I'm not giving up on Devotion because there's a card I want to try out Devotion in this set too, but
Yeah, the quarantine needs to be over right now because as soon as this set comes out, you're gonna put Ponza together, and I'm the only person here that can play against you. And you're the only person that I'm the only person that you can bully right now.
unless I build Ponza on mid-go.
This card is
Which I
not
will
good
do.
for my mental health because you're gonna bully me.
I have Ponza on mid-go. I need to get more dual shocklands for it and for this. And then I will play it more in tournaments on MTGO. I might stream those if you guys want to see me bullying people online. If you guys want to see me do some red-green cyberbullying. But Waking the Trolls is really good. It's a little expensive, but think about it like Moonvuli Acid Moss, which is a 4 of in a lot of Ponza lists. It's 4 mana, destroy a land, search your deck for a force to put it into play tapped. You get to put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You can get the one that you busted up on their side if it's something cool that you need, like a man land or like Field of Ruin. You can get your own fetch land back.
Oh yeah.
And then crack whatever you want, crack it for whatever you want. And then, this is a win condition. This will probably, when I put this in the deck, either like Primeval Titan or Goblin Dark Dwellers will get cut, because Goblin Dark Dwellers, the purpose of that, it's a 4/4 menace. When it comes in, you get to flashback a sorcery that costs 3 or less from your yard and for free. So you get flashback a Stone Rain. But this, that might get cut for this. Because it's giving you the 4/4 bodies, it's blowing up a land, it's doing what that did, but a little bit better for 1 more mana. So I don't know what I'll cut for it, but this is going to go into Modern Ponza. And I think I don't know if this would see any standard play, because it really capitalizes on your opponent not having lands, which is not something you can make them have in standard. There's just no 3 mana land destruction, there's 4 mana land destruction, but it kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not high on this for standard, but for Modern, absolutely, I want 4 copies of this on day 1.
You don't think it's too slow?
No, not for Ponza. Like in Ponza, you just need to hit a land every turn, and then eventually do something on top of hitting a land.
Oh.
By hit a land, I mean you need to blow up a land every turn, and then eventually do something on top of hitting a land, which used to be Goblin Dark Dwellers, because you'd get a 4/4 body with menace and blow up a land, so they can't respond to you, or they can't be playing big things. But now you play this, you get to hit a land, and then eventually you get some trolls.
But by turn 6, you haven't already won?
No, because you're spending all your mana to just blow up their lands.
Oh.
And then you get them when they don't have any, when they're not drawing lands to replace the ones you're blowing up, that's when you capitalize.
Oh.
But this is blowing up the land and then capitalizing. It sounds like you haven't played against enough Ponza. We need to play some Ponza matches.
Help me.
Yeah. So that's Waking the Trolls. Furia's Retribution. 1 double white and a black for a saga. Step 1. Create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. So this is a 4 mana Sarah Angel as the first step of the saga.
Yeah. Maybe 2 if you're playing that.
Yeah, if you're playing Battle for Breda, it just curves off of Battle for
Yeah.
Breda. So yeah, I mean, and then play this next turn. You get the second mode, and then the first mode of Freya's Retribution or Furia's Retribution, and then last turn you immediately copy the angel if it didn't die. So yeah, I mean, it's a little tough to cast with those mana costs, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone could make it work. We still have the Triomes in standard, and there's a Triome of those 3 colors.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, those come in tapped, so you would have to play it on turn 1 or 2. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. So first step, you get a Sarah Angel token. Second step, until end of turn, angels you control gain tap to destroy target creature with power less than this creature's power.
Dang.
So your angels can just eat things until the end of the turn, which is kind of crazy. And then number 3, angels you control gain double strike until end of
Oh
turn.
my gosh.
This card's kind of busted. I think the downside of this is you blow up the angel and then the other 2 modes don't do anything. So I think that kind of keeps this in check. But this is definitely a powerful card that I would expect to see some standard play. They're definitely pushing sagas in this set, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like half of these feel like they're as strong as History of Analia, which was like the Mistake saga from the original run. So I am, or like Elspeth Conqueror's Death level strength. Like a lot of these are really good. Well, how do you feel about Furia's Retribution?
I like it.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
I like it too. So next we've got King Narfi's Betrayal. 1 a blue and a black. Step 1. Each player mills 4 cards. Then you may exile a creature or planeswalker card from each graveyard.
This is a really good 2-headed giant. Just mill 8 cards.
Yeah?
I hate that though. I wouldn't want to do that to my opponent.
And then for step 2 and 3, each until end of turn you can cast spells from that you exiled this way. So you have 2 turns to play those cards basically. And you can spend your mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. So, yeah, I mean, you get a creature or planeswalker from each graveyard that's yours and your opponent's, and then you get 2 turns to play it. You know, you get into turn 5 if you play this on turn 3. Which I think my criticism of this card is it just doesn't do enough. Like, this is basically just divination with a shitload of extra words on it. This is kind of just draw 2 cards. And you kind of have to play, like, there's restrictions on when you can play them. Like, the magical Christmas land for this is you get, like, the perfect 2 and 3 drops, and you get to play, like, all 4 cards that you exile, but that's pretty much never going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a creature, it's a creature or a planeswalker. Oh, you only get 2 cards in a 2-player game. Because you only get a creature or planeswalker from each graveyard. Not a creature and a planeswalker. Okay. I think I'm comfortable saying this card is terrible outside of Commander.
I really hate when rare cards are like deceivingly bad.
Yeah, it's a real letdown when you open it from a pack.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, as a new player that seems kinda good. But
There's a lot of text on there. It's a lot of text to spell maybe draw 2 cards.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, well, at least it's not Pokemon where half the rares are just like a victory bell that just has 2 attacks that do damage. Like, that's your rare for the pack. Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, this card sucks outside of Commander. Like, in Commander, it's, I think, pretty good because, you know, you've got 4 graveyards to dig through, but, we don't play bad formats here on War Crimes Zulu. So, yeah, let's look at, we're going to ignore these 2, even though they're the most interesting cards on the page, because they are the backside of single color cards, so we will look at them later. But we've got 2 Planeswalkers and a Sneck. Which one do you want to talk about first? I'll let you pick.
Snake, it's by my favorite artist.
Okay, so Koma Cosmos Serpent is a Jesper Acing piece. Very nice art. That is KC's favorite artist in Magic.
Yep.
He's Swedish, Norwegian of some stripe. So Koma Cosmos Serpent is not the busted Simic Mythic that we've been seeing for the past few sets. It's 3, double green, double blue, 6/6, can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, you get a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. Sacrifice another serpent, choose one. Tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, or Koma gains indestructible till end of turn. So every upkeep you get a 3/3, you can sack it to either like sort of take something under the water for a turn or protect Koma. It's a 7-mana 6/6 with a lot of interesting text. You don't actually get a serpent until your upkeep, and like there's not a lot of cards that are serpents, so it's not like Serpent Tribal is going to let you bring this down and immediately be able to activate its abilities. You kind of have to get the abilities off of its coil. So, and you're not going to get a coil until your next upkeep. So it's a 7-mana 6/6 that you kind of have to pass into your next turn before it has abilities. Can't be countered is nice, but it absolutely can be murked by sorcery speed removal before it actually gets to do anything. So I'm gonna call this probably the worst mythic in a set.
Sad face. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean it'll be cheap. You get your Jesper Acing art card.
I know.
Really? I thought you were collecting every Jesper Acing card.
No.
Okay.
Just the Ewok. And the pacifist troll.
Oh yeah. Wait, pacifism?
Yeah.
Or like the troll from this set?
No. Well, I guess, yeah, that one too.
Yeah. So, Kaya the Inexorable. This is a new Kaya. I like her hairstyle on this card. 3 a white and a black. for a legendary planeswalker, Gaia. Go figure. 5 starting loyalty, +1. Put a ghost form counter onto one target non-token creature. It gains, when this creature dies or is put into exile, return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So that's cool. It gets a permanent counter on a creature that when it dies or gets exiled, bounces to your hand, you get a spirit. That's pretty awesome by itself. -3, exile target non-land permanent. So this planeswalker has a pretty valuable +1, although unfortunately it doesn't really protect itself. It does generate a lot of value. A -3 that's removable, and then an emblem, which is at -7. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a legendary spell from your hand, from your graveyard, or from among cards you own in exile, without paying its mana cost. Need I remind you, this includes Gaia. I think the legendary thing restriction is on there so that you can't just keep bringing back more copies of the same thing. You're kind of limited to 1 copy of each thing you can bring back. But this emblem is game winning. Any emblem is game winning. But you don't judge a planeswalker based on its alt. I think this comes down, removes something. If they don't answer it, you just get to put a +1 count. You just get to put a ghost form counter on one of your value creatures. Think just a creature with a good enters the battlefield trigger, so that when it dies, it goes back to your hand. You get to play it, get that ATB trigger again.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think this guy is definitely going to see a tiny bit of standard play at least. Yeah, it can't put ghost form counters on token creatures just to give you the spirit, even if they don't go back to your hand, which is unfortunate, so it won't work with the angel tokens or anything. But if there's a black-white deck that's playing enough real non-token creatures, I think this could do fine. It's a piece of removal, and then you put a ghost form counter on something. Yeah. And I think that's all you need for your 5 mana to feel like it was a worthy cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pretty fun.
I like that first mode. I think that's cool.
I agree. So next we've got Nico Aris. First non-binary planeswalker that is a human, not just an entity that doesn't have gender. Well, actually, I think they might be an elf. No, they're from Theros, so they'd have to be a human. I don't think there's any human-looking things that aren't humans on Theros. Anyway, humanoid, non-binary planeswalker, Nico Aris. X, a white and double blue. And this is a really interesting effect that they have, and I like it a lot. So they come in with 3 counters, so that X is not for their loyalty. When they enter the battlefield, you create X shard tokens, and shards are like clues except you get to scry one first, and they're enchantments, not artifacts. So they trigger Constellation for what that's worth. You actually mentioned this to me the other night. Yeah. You play the Archon, and then you play Nico, and you get a Pegasus for each of the shards that you bring in, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're enchantments plays with some cards from Theros, which is neat because Nico's from Theros. It's a little bit of a flavor and function. But the +1, up to 1 target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. When that creature hits a player, when that creature deals damage this turn, return it to its owner's hand. So, you're probably going to put that on something that has a good enters the battlefield trigger, because otherwise you don't want to be bouncing into your hand. Right. -1, 2 damage to target tapped creature for each card you've drawn this turn. So if you crack a couple of those shards, you've drawn some cards, you can kill a tapped creature for -1, which I think is pretty good. And then the other -1 is just create a shard token. There are not going to be many situations you want to use the plus, so I think you want to think of this planeswalker as giving you some shard tokens when they come in, and then you got those 2 pretty decent minuses. One of them is potentially a removal spell, one of them is shard tokens. Make more shards, get more Constellation triggers, draw more cards and scry. Who doesn't love doing that? So I think the +1 kind of sucks, but the +1 isn't really the point. And it's not awful to just play this on 3. You will always have drawn 1 card this turn for just the card that you drew, so just shocking a tapped creature for -1, if you're you play this on 3, kill your opponent's thing that they attacked you with last turn, and then make 2 shard tokens, and then I think you got your value for 3 mana, absolutely. So I think this is a really good card. I think this will definitely see some play, especially if we see any decent Jeskai control deck going on in Standard. I like this a lot. How do you feel about Nico?
I agree. It's nice to see it.
Okay. Would you like to go into another color night, or do you want to call it quits for the night and do this tomorrow and maybe Monday? Yeah, mine is as well. I think we're going to call it quits for the night. Thank you for the active chat and for our an enjoyable evening of discussing Magic cards. We will be back tomorrow night at a time at 4-ish to discuss white cards, blue cards, and maybe black cards, and then we'll be back Monday night as well to discuss the rest of the cards. So we hope you will join us then. dear viewers, at War Crimes Woo. And then look out on Stevensville Gamer's YouTube channel for my review of the set in terms of Limited, what you should be trying to build around in Limited to have successful drafts in Sealed. But yeah, with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Take care of yourselves. Trans rights. Israel's not a legitimate state. Bars.